Good morning once again. It is 6:08. Wow, it's cold. It's 34 degrees, but it's going to get worse. It's Monday, December 2nd, 2019. Welcome to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone here with Chris Conway. This is Radio Westchester, the radio station at the train station. You can listen to us on RadioWestchester.com. Go on MyTuner Radio. Our app is there. You can listen in your car, on your phone, or anywhere on the planet, including the space station. We're also on Facebook, Instagram, Periscope, and I know YouTube. Yes, I knew I forgot something. Welcome to the program. Let's take a look at our top stories this morning. Obviously, the weather trumps everything. 34 and cold. Chris is going to be back with the full forecast. Right now, we lucked out so far. No real snow on the ground, but they're telling us we'll have snow later this afternoon. Chris will tell you that, or earlier, or we should say perhaps late morning. We'll go over some of the school closings. There are very few here down in southern Westchester, a few more up county, of course. And after weeks of drama, the New Rochelle football finishes as a state champion. Good for them. A Yonkers doctor sentenced for not following medical guidelines and oxycodone prescriptions. Boy, for just a couple of handfuls of mistakes, they threw the book at him. And the Holiday coach admits he collected workers' comp while coaching basketball. If anyone thinks that's a surprise, I got a bridge where I grew up for you. All righty, we go now to Chris Conway with the weather. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Bob. It is 24 degrees here in New Rochelle.
But 24? No, that's 34.
That's a 3 instead of a 2?
That's a 3.
Looks like a 2.
Do you want my glasses? I got another pair right here. Go ahead.
All right, we'll go with Bob. 34 degrees here in New Rochelle. It is cloudy and windy. There will be a mix of rain and snow at times here in the lower Hudson Valley. Now, once you cross 287, things get a little more severe. A winter storm warning is in effect until tomorrow morning. That's again for north of 287. South, just a winter weather advisory. Tonight, some snow at times, little snow accumulations, maybe an inch, maybe 2 inches. Tomorrow, freezing, sunny, high only in the upper 20s. Wednesday and Thursday, mix of sun and clouds. High will be around 40 degrees. Weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Thank you very much, Chris. We go straight ahead now to the rest of the news. Again, the big story today is going to be the weather. I know we panic you, we in the media, all weekend long. Armageddon's coming. You won't be able to get to work this morning. Getting to work this morning in southern Westchester was actually pretty easy unless it gets much icy. But again, the real story is Chris laid out. Later this morning and into the afternoon, we could have some accumulations. But again, by tomorrow, on the ground, maybe an inch, maybe not at all. It might have melted. But nonetheless, we're going to share with you right now of the school closings, and we'll be quick about it. Now, here in Westchester, you're only seeing the closings up north. Briarcliff Manor closed, Chappaqua closed, Lakeland closed, North Salem closed, Peekskill closed, Pleasantville, early dismissal, 2 hours. In Yorktown, they're closed. Iona Prep School, which is down county, is closed. Students should check plusportals.com to see. Now, over in Rockland, East Ramapo, 2-hour delay. Nanuet, 2-hour delay. North Rockland, 2-hour delay. Nyack, 2-hour delay. And I'm really looking at the thing all over again. My brain. My copy printed everything twice. I have stuttering paper. All right. So let us just double check that, because I managed to confuse myself, which is not that difficult to do, folks. As you well know, if you listen regularly. In Rockland, again, East Ramapo, Nanuet, Nyack, Rockland, Boces, 2-hour delay. South Orangetown, 2-hour delay. Albertus Magnus High School, 2-hour delay. And over in Putnam, or rather up in Putnam, Brewster closed, Carmel closed, Garrison closed, Haldane closed, Mayapack closed, Putnam Valley closed, Putnam Northern Westchester, Boces is closed. Now let's get to the rest of the news. The world continues to spin even as the weather makes it a bit chilly. This is a story, or part of a larger story we've been following for weeks now. The New Rochelle High School football team played its third straight game without its head coach Saturday. This in Low HUD and in News 12. But guess what? They won the championship of the state of New York. The Huguenot players, who'd been caught in the middle of 3 weeks of infighting between the district and members of the community over the status of their coach, had their game moved up due to Sunday's impending storm, but none of the adversity kept the team from achieving its ultimate goal, and it was kind of a layup. New Rochelle captured its third state championship in program history Saturday night. It defeated McQuaid Jesuit of Rochester 28-0 at the Syracuse University Carrier Dome. Congratulations to them. Now, they finished the season 13-0, Chris. They played all 3 state playoff games without their head coach, Lou DiRienzo, but nonetheless, congratulations to them. Senior Darren Kaba, who was named the game's MVP, led the defensive effort with 4 sacks. Got to know the quarterback very well, I assume. Congratulations to the Huguenots. That's a nice thing, and considering all that they went through, sort of a life lesson there that you can be successful even with all these kinds of setbacks. This out of Yonkers and Low HUD this morning. A Yonkers doctor, has been sentenced to 18 months in prison for not following proper medical guidelines in 2014 when he wrote a dozen prescriptions for oxycodone. Now, there's not a lot of details in this one, Chris, but Dr. Nadim Saeed was sentenced in Manhattan federal court. According to court documents, the 65-year-old was also sentenced to 2 years probation. He must pay $11,000 in restitution. He has to report to prison in January. What I found that this story is lacking, but again, not through any fault of anyone. I'm sure all the stories we cover. But if it's only 12 prescriptions, were they deliberately written, or did he just simply, there's a difference, and we needed to know that. Because if someone, and they write thousands of prescriptions, if only 12 they screwed up accidentally, I'm sure he wouldn't be going to jail. That's a pretty good percentage. Hold on. I'm sure he wouldn't be going to jail.
That's not a bad percentage, 12
so
out of
it's one of those stories where you're on deadline, and, I think you get the message. All right, let's look up at Haldane. It sounds like a medication, doesn't it? But Haldane, a coach there, Peekskill man, has admitted to collecting workers' comp while still coaching high school basketball. This in Low HUD. Officials say Tyrone Seawright, I should say, claimed to have injured his knees back in 2016, forcing him out of his job as an MTA bus driver. However, investigators say surveillance video caught the 49-year-old still coaching girls basketball for the Haldane Central High School District in Cold Spring. He could be seen running, bending, and squatting. Now, do you know why I'm laughing, Chris? You were with us years ago, a decade ago, and I've only gotten one call so far. You know what I say at least 10 times a year? If anyone in the sound of my voice hasn't met someone who's on a fake disability, call me. Some of the toughest and best hockey players I play against are on disability from the police and fire. They can't walk, they get full pensions, but they could sure smack me around. All righty. This out of White Plains. Retired firefighters there are calling on the city to end the police or policy requiring them to pay a portion of their health insurance. Listen, Low HUD, or rather News 12, According to an agreement the city reached with the fire union in 1970, the city of White Plains would pay 100% of the health insurance premiums for retired firefighters as of July 1971. But in 2010, fighting a financial crisis, the city required both active and retired firefighters to contribute 15%. Now, in 2015, they restored the 100% contribution for active, but not for retirees. I have mixed feelings about that one, Chris. Everybody pays a little bit for their insurance, even those of us on Medicare. But on the other hand, a deal should be a deal. Yeah. So particularly for the retired people who aren't going to be making money, they've got fixed incomes. Wonder how you all feel when we open the phones later. I'm sure you will let us know. This out of Yonkers, and a story that is being covered. We tried to get him on today, but our schedules conflicted. Hezi Aris from the Yonkers Tribune. He's been covering this story in depth. Yonkers Deputy Communications Director Akeem Jamal was arraigned Friday on multiple charges stemming from an alleged DWI wrong-way crash back in September. Jamal, confined to a wheelchair, faced a judge during a brief appearance. The 22-year-old pleaded not guilty to several charges, including driving while intoxicated and reckless driving. Investigators say Jamal was drunk in the early morning hours of September 15 when he was driving his Beamer northbound. Blah, blah, blah. They say he suffered head and body injuries. The driver of the SUV, a 53-year-old Dutchess County resident, suffered head and leg injuries not considered life-threatening. Mayor Mike Spano says Jamal will remain on his staff throughout the court proceedings. He expects him to remain on the staff after the court case is over. I guess everyone has a right to plead not guilty to drunk driving in a head-on crash. Because you know what happened, Chris? That road, it's a mobile road. It jumped out in front of his Beamer. Could you imagine that? You're driving home. You just went out with some friends for a couple of cups of coffee, and you're riveted to the road, and damn, if that road didn't come out.
Those mobile roads will get
Those
you
mobile
every time.
roads will get you every time. And I know Hezi Aris is covering it carefully, and what sticks in Hezi's craw is the excuse making, and it didn't happen here, kind of denial stuff. But nonetheless, you know, he deserves, he's got a right to plead not guilty. He probably, again, it's the mobile road. I will testify on his behalf. That road jumped out at me. All righty. Tis the season. That's because the city of White Plains will be kicking off the holiday season with its annual City Lights Bright Holiday Night celebration downtown. It starts tomorrow. The night includes a variety of entertainment, live music, an ice carving exhibit, a photo booth, hands-on crafts, and all the rest of it. Making an appearance at the event will be Santa and his friends, Frosty and Rudolph. How nice will that be when the mayor shows up to say happy, happy, or something like that? That's Yonkers. That's tomorrow night. You know, I didn't get my email. I think my emails from the Chamber, the Chamber of Commerce, still go to my old radio station. So I got to, but I know they have their tree lighting this week. I will catch up with that. I'll make a call because that's very important. It's a wonderful event we do here in New Rochelle every year. And this story should have been the next to last story, Chris, so my apologies, everyone. The Christmas story was the kicker, but sometimes it's like shuffling cards. You put the ace. Well, no, that would be cheating, wouldn't it? You don't put them there on purpose, but I inadvertently put this in. But this is actually a sad story. It goes back to Thanksgiving. News 12 was told that this was an accident involving an elderly woman in Yonkers, a hit-and-run crash, and she died. 77-year-old Po Yol Han was crossing the street when a pickup truck westbound hit her, stopped for several minutes, then fled the scene. I'm glad I put it last. We have, in Westchester, a plethora, way too many, of these hit-and-run deals where people take off. How many people, and I can see all the mayors now and city managers tucking their heads, Chris, oh God, I hope Bob doesn't talk about that. Because what happens is, particularly if they're liberal cities, and here I am a liberal, throwing my own people under the bus, well, sort of a liberal in some cases. Oh, God, we don't want them to know that we have a lot of people driving without licenses or unregistered vehicles, and then they take off and all of that. Now, the cops do a great job in stopping them, but it's a question of policy. We have way too many of these in Westchester, way too many, particularly in Yonkers. Of course, the Bronx is always, they drive in from the Bronx. In Yonkers, Peekskill, let me see, Mount Vernon, and New Rochelle. All righty, that does it for the local stories. We go right now to Chris Conway and sports. Chris, what's going on in the world of sports?
Good morning. Well, Bob, you were right to bet the Jets last week and not this week because
I'm brilliant.
They lost to the Cincinnati Bengals 22-6. The Jets' 3-game winning streak is snapped. It is the first time in NFL history a team lost twice in one season to two different winless teams that were at least 0-7.
It was the Jets? One to two win? Yeah, but the first time they won without their quarterback.
No, the Jets, they lost to Miami a couple weeks ago with their quarterback.
Were they in
0-7
Miami?
at the time.
Maybe they were just enjoying the heat. I could use it right now because I did not set the heat properly over the weekend, and so I'm just thawing now. I got in for prep this morning, and I froze my cookies off. And they were not baked cookies either.
No, they're not
Go
baked.
ahead.
The Giants also lost. They got embarrassed at home to the Green Bay Packers. Their fans took over the snowy Meadowlands 31-13. The Giants are now in last place in the NFC with a sparkling 2-10 record.
Yes.
NBA, Miami beat Brooklyn 109-106. Boston beat the Knicks 113-104. That's the Knicks' sixth straight loss. So every local team lost yesterday. And, of course, Bob mentioned New Rochelle High School. They won their third straight
big win.
Class AA championship, 28-0 over McKay Jesuit in the Carrier Dome. Tonight, all the hockey locals are in action. The Rangers host Vegas. The Islanders are in Detroit.
They've been winning.
Yeah.
The Rangers are starting to win, all those young guns.
Yeah, they're playing well. Hopefully they keep it up. The Islanders are in Detroit. The Devils are in Buffalo. The Knicks are in Minnesota. Monday Night Football tonight, a good one. Minnesota takes on Seattle. And for Radio Westchester, I'm Chris Conway.
Well, you were Chris Conway. We're going back to Chris Conway because here now is Chris Conway with the weather.
And good morning once again. It is 35 degrees here in New Rochelle. Today, around here, it'll be cloudy and windy, a mix of rain and snow. Highs in the upper 40s. North of 287, there is a winter storm warning until 7 a.m. tomorrow.
You've been warned.
South of 287, just a winter weather advisory. Tonight, there's will be snow at times. It'll taper off a little after midnight. Possible 1 to 2 inches around here, although, again, once you cross 287, it will get worse, looking at 3 to 6 inches up there. And then if you go even further north, maybe a foot of snow. So if you're up north, stay inside today and tonight. Tomorrow, Tuesday will be sunny, 39 degrees. Wednesday and Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds, high around 40. Weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Chris, thank you very much. Let's take a look now at who's supporting us today. Of course, our friends at the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Pena and Kahn. Dominic Cigars and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Remind you at 8, we'll be talking with Jake. Now, he did his football picks for the for Thanksgiving, and we will get his results for those. He didn't do it for Sunday, though, but we'll get his take on what he would have done for Sunday. And, of course, those football picks, Jake's Picks of the Week, are brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road. We've got quite the lineup today. We're going to come back with some regional and national stories, and then, of course, we'll open up the telephones for a bit. We'll be joined at 7 o'clock by Trevor Regan from the Red Cross. What's going on and how they need help now because the government has not been keeping pace with previous disasters, whether they be here in the mainland or down in Puerto Rico. 7:20, we're going to talk with Vincent Russo about his commitment to the Lord and a few other things that he's been up to lately. 7:35, George Latimer joins us, and we're going to ask him about that issue, if you recall, that our lawyer friend, Mr. Duffy, asked about, and that is the road on top of Kensigo Dam, been closed since 9/11, but for a brief respite. Then Jake's football picks of the week, his Francesa facts. Noam Bramson joins us today at 8:20, and then a new guest joins us. You may remember her. Jen Graziano will be joining us about 8:35 today, and at 8:50, Tom Abenante. He is the assemblyman from the heart of Westchester. And then Bob Cox joins us at 9 o'clock. We have a lot to talk about with him. All of his research work on the feud, or at least the alleged feud, between the former, who may soon be the former coach of the football team, and the medical department. But one question we have for Bob, and this always happens in debates, Chris, and I once won a debate with an employee once. He was a really great executive, great employee. We're great friends today. This guy was a brilliant technologist, right? Mm-hmm. And he had a couple of hickeys. And when I say hickeys, things that during his appraisal by me to him that I thought he needed to improve on. And we wound up for an hour debating this, that, the other thing. And finally it hit me, and I'm going to ask this of Bob Cox today. Finally it hit me during the debate. We're walking out to go get a beer, because overall he loved it. He got a great appraisal. He just wanted to be perfect, you know. And the guy helped design a wonderful system that still exists today, some 20 years later. But finally it hit me. I whipped around, Chris. I just turned around because he's one of these very anal guys. He could, and there's every little thing that wasn't right. But wasn't it 7 a.m. when I did? I turned around and I said, deny it. He went, huh? Deny it. Forget all the other things. Just deny it. Ergo, regarding the coach, I don't care what the feuds were. I don't care who he disagreed with. I don't care who was out to get him. Did he do what he's alleged to have done? Then I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. But on the other hand, she should be treated equally based on all others and performance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now, we're going to open up the telephones because it's early and people have been very busy. 914-222-3141. So much to talk about. So little time, Bobby. All right. A couple of items that I tore out of the paper this weekend. I know people don't want to believe it. They think it's some sort of a conspiracy. But the United Nations, oh no, the United Nations doesn't count. Yes, they do. Well, at least there have to be people there that have opinions that are valuable. Climate is at a crisis point. You think we'd see that with all the floods? Do you know what's slowly going underwater is, oh good grief, in Italy. God, when I'm losing my brain. The city with all the bays. You know, what's that? The town with all the, gosh darn it. Can't even think anymore. I've been there. St. Mark's Square and all that. Oh, Venice. Pretty soon that's going to be the new Atlantis. Anyway, UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres said Sunday that the world's efforts to stop climate change have been utterly inadequate so far, and there is a danger global warming could pass the point of no return. While that may be extreme, what they have determined is that the ice caps are melting, including Greenland, Chris, at a rate greater than what they expected and what they had been predicting. Now, another story, that's sort of a national story, but a story that is really making local news. We talked about it on Friday a little bit. There is a Staten Island warehouse that it's turning out is becoming a labor camp. Oh. Amazon. You have to see the things that people are saying about this place.
A lot of nightmare stories about Amazon.
The job crushed my spirit, says one person, and crippled my body. It was absolutely the worst job I ever had in my life. Although, you know, when someone 23 is saying it's the worst job I ever had in my life, you know, I do wonder about the snowflake principle. Yeah. You mean they wanted me to do stuff on time and quickly? How dare they? But it seems to me that there is something to this. They all drank the Kool-Aid. They said, this is the best place to work. It was cult-like. And this is on managers at Amazon. I stocked everything you can imagine, normal stuff you'd buy at the store, garbage bags, board games, toys. They were the hardest to stow. I also stocked dildos and vibrators. There were cans of pet food and baby formula. That was heavy stuff. Lots and lots of books. You had to align them properly so you could read this. And you could get fired if you got in the way of a robot. By the way, according to this. Again, these are all allegations. We need to look into this. But what we're hearing at Amazon, you know, that it really is a rough place to work. At Amazon, you were surrounded by bots, and they were treated better than humans. Again, we're going to withhold our own judgment until we research the story a little more. But if you know any stories about Amazon, please feel free to call us. Because one of the things that I'm learning, it's like my dealings with one of the great banks. Oh, did I say Wells Fargo? You can't deal with these people anymore because everybody's trained into their little niche. Yeah. So that you call up on a problem. Like I had a problem that I have one actually now with them. Chris, and everybody I talk to agrees with my point of view, but they can't do anything about it because none of them handle it. None of them handle it. In other words, it's not their job. And this is what they found out. This really is nobody's job because nobody's in charge of the whole thing. So gross me up, get me up high, get me up. Mm-hmm. Believe me, they're not authorized to do this, sir. Yeah. There's nothing that we can do. You know what it's like? It reminds me of once. It's akin to this. I once got a bad credit report because I paid off a loan this is 40 years ago, but I paid off the loan so well that it was ahead of time, so they charged off like 8 cents of interest. Mm-hmm. Well, that charge off went to a credit agency they wrote off the debt. Years to straighten that baby out. Well, when you deal with Wells Fargo, that's what you deal with. And I told him on the phone, I said, you made the radio. I do this for a living. Well, don't you have enough trouble with customers? Why do you do this? You've sent me 7 letters, and every single letter was generated by a computer, and it calls me a deadbeat, and I'm not a deadbeat because it was something that the court told me to do. Yeah. Oh, yes, we totally agree with you. Okay, so we can't do anything about it, though. You should fix this. I said, but it's not broken. And by the way, our idea man, what's his face, Jake. He wants me we do this new bit about Bob's Beefs. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start throwing things around here, Bob's Beef. I mean, as it is now, I want to nuke Pelham for what they've done to my life.
Oh, yes.
With the traffic.
Yeah, with the roads.
See, and see, it's not, the whole point, folks, about humor and the sarcastic and angst part of humor is it's not supposed to be defensible or offensive. It's supposed to capture a feeling. Now, of course, whoever the incompetent mayor is, no, I'm only kidding. Whoever the mayor of because it used to be Volpian, it was very, very good at the time. I don't know if it's there now, but obviously he never worked with highways. But he or she may be the most competent person in the world, and there's nothing they can do about it. But it has to do with how I feel. That's the humor of it. Someone ought to be able to do something about it. It's just like my problems with Wells Fargo. In other words, manage the thing. Are we all just subject to everybody's incompetence? And it has to be incompetence. There's no way that every other block on Lincoln Avenue, including the corner that everybody goes to get the hutch, is digging up every single GD day, every single day.
Yeah.
And then they send you 4 blocks this way, 5 blocks that way, go around, take a spin, come down this way. And if you don't like it, too bad. This is bigger than you, sir. This is our incompetence at work, our inability to coordinate at work.
I think you made yourself clear.
No, but see, I didn't even start that segment yet. But I told him it's going to be a very dangerous thing or you go into a store. I went into Staples over the weekend. I broke the mic. I went into Staples. You were not watching this. I went into Staples over the weekend, and I was shocked. Shocked. Ask me why.
Why? Why were you shocked?
There was a competent person there.
No, get out.
You ever gone to the one to say, I love throwing the local business under the bus? Because you will. In fact, I'm going to be adding a show soon. We've been working on designing shows. We're going to do a show where you get to complain about local business, kind of like a radio Yelp, where you get to call up. Like, I've yet to have a good experience in the Staples on Boston Post Road.
Really?
Oh, no. It's like they actually have a recruiter that meets with you and say, what's 5 and 7? To 18. They hire you. Tell me, where's the printing? Gee, I don't know. I don't know where the ink is. Well, can you help me find maybe these special binders? What's a binder, sir? Okay. And then there's my favorite place. I'm not going to mention it by name because I'm going to give them a little bit of break. Mm-hmm. But there is an Indian restaurant here in New Rochelle that everybody praises. I despise them. And I'll tell you why I despise them. I just taken over the Chamber of Commerce a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. And I walk in, and the guy starts cursing me out because I wasn't there before. I said, I just took over. You miserable, blah, 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 blah. So now guess what? I've never been to your restaurant. I ain't ever going back. If you could treat anybody like garbage, that means you can treat anybody like garbage. Don't do it to me because you will get paid back. I will rail on these microphones every day and pound you. All right. That's what you can expect. That's just a preview of Bob's Beef. So you have no idea. Well, there is this one coffee shop here in New Rochelle. Do you know? I have no, I'm one of these pro-immigration people. I really am. I want them to follow the law and all that, but America's a nation of immigrants, and it wasn't far from where I sleep, and it's a neighborhood I love, and I even love the culture. I live in more or less a Latino neighborhood, but I went to get a cup of coffee, The woman didn't understand the word coffee.
No.
Yes. See, you gotta have like a minimum. See, like a minimum. Just I understand you can have an accent. I understand I have a little language issue. But if I ask for a coffee, you shouldn't look for me like I've just asked for the molecular composition of plutonium 238. Am I right or wrong?
Well, I guess in their defense, I mean, who orders coffee in the morning? It's such a rare order.
Never forget. I never go back there either. God. Oh, wait, let me give you the other one.
Are you down to like 3 businesses
Did
now?
it? No, because he started this, you see, and I've got to warm up for the future of what we do here. Oh, yeah. If you have a business, folks, it's like this. You know, you have to get stuff from the inside, but I go, what do you want? Like, we're going to start covering high school sports soon. When you say what you want, we have to deliver what the client wants. Otherwise, you go broke. Well, I get a kick out of when you go in a restaurant. Could be an Italian restaurant, although they kind of get it now because they've been around 100 years. But there's the sandwich shop on North Avenue. I won't say how it is because I used to go there frequently. And most of the people that they serve are Iona College students.
Yeah.
Okay. However, the people that work there are Latino. Well, they have a TV for the students. Guess what's on the television?
What?
Latino stuff.
Telemundo?
Yeah, no, my point is your business is for the customer.
Yeah.
you imbecile. You dope. I realize you didn't go, maybe you didn't go to NYU and take a marketing course, but if you want the kids, you got to play what they like.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
But instead you go in and you get your sandwich and watch a little TV. Ends incognito. Great. Put it on in the back. I get it. And if it's a if it's a Latino restaurant, that's different. Then you want the ambiance,
Yeah.
You want the romantic music. And the same thing in an Italian restaurant. You go in a lot of pizza shops, and true, if it's a small shop and it's takeout, who cares? But I really don't want, if I am a customer, I don't want to be watching the Italian soccer game.
Yeah. No, you go into any Italian place, any pizzeria.
They got the soccer playing.
There's soccer on, yeah.
No, I
European
understand.
soccer.
No, but see, just what you should be putting on is the Ranger game or the Yankee game. Okay. That was just a warm-up. Bob's Beef is going to be a lot of fun, and you just gave you a little test. Oh, wait, let me give you one more. You ever go, actually, they're pretty good here in New Rochelle in general. In general, not always. Just don't do it at 4:30. When you go and like to get a permit or something, not at 4:30. The most dangerous place in Westchester at 4:30 is a municipal office building.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get out of here. I feel better already. I should send somebody a check. It is 6:41. It's going to be time again. I have a couple of stories. Now we get a little more hardcore because I am so sad of covering these stories, but it needs to be done because in Germany, Chris, and when we come back from this quick break, Germany finally is doing something we haven't yet done here in the United States, and that is finally have a real debate, we Catholics, a real debate over celibacy, women, etc. It's out of hand. Here's a story. Pedophile priests in California operated at a California school for decades and decades, unreported. But the story in Germany is really interesting because the Catholic Church, there, is in effect thinking of seceding, and even the Pope has issued a papal bull about it, because they feel that the celibacy rule has to be dropped. Priests ought to be able to marry, and women ought to be priests. Now, it makes total common sense.
Yes.
Okay, after all that we've seen. But the church is like all in arms. And I hate to say this, but we'll ask Vince how he feels about this when he calls in at 7:20. I think they should. I think Martin Luther's Reformation was special and painstaking and 70% on the mark, not 100%, if you like that kind of intellectual curiosity. But the church is so worried about losing people who need regimentation. See, most people want to be told what to do. So somebody's got to keep a report card out there. It's got to be, if I go to church, see, there are people who will go to church every Sunday and go to communion every Sunday and check that box off, but they're the most miserable human beings on the planet. Anyway, we got to do weather, and I got to shut up. Yes, weather, and I got to shut up and get back to that. Do weather.
It's 35 degrees here in New Rochelle. There's a winter storm warning for those north of 287. South of 287, just a winter weather advisory. Today will be cloudy and windy, mix of rain and snow, highs in the low 40s tonight. Snow at times will taper off just after midnight. Below 287, maybe 1 to 2 inches. It gets a little more severe as you go further north, 3 to 6 inches north of 287. Again, winter storm warning north of 287, south, just a winter weather advisory. Tomorrow, sunny, 39 degrees. Wednesday and Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds. Both days high around 40. And weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. It's voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. For Radio Westchester, I'm Chris Conway.
Thank you very much, Chris. And we look now towards the 6:45 segment. And this bottom of the hour is brought to you by Aging Issues Management and Aging Issues Radio, the law firm of Pena and Kahn. Plug in virtual reality, the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. And Dominic's Cigars. Dominic's Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. I just want to cover some of the school closings again. There are not a lot, folks, and some of them are whole districts, particularly here in southern Westchester. Virtually nothing, except what we did have one, which... I was just looking at it, and that is Iona Prep. Closed. Students should check plusportals.com/Iona Prep. Now, Westchester, this is the closing. Briarcliff Manor closed. Chappaqua closed. Lakeland closed. North Salem closed. Peekskill closed. Pleasantville early dismissal at 1 p.m. No after-school activities. Yorktown closed. We now will go to Rockland, East Ramapo, 2-hour delay. Nanuet, 2-hour delay. Nyack, 2-hour delay. Rockland Boces, 2-hour delay. South Orangetown, 2-hour delay. Albertus Magnus High School, 2-hour delay. Now Putnam, all these are closed. Brewster closed. Carmel closed. Garrison closed. Haldane closed. Mayapack closed. Putnam Valley closed. Putnam Northern Westchester Boces is closed. So that is where we are at there. Now, also, after weeks of drama, we told you about the New Rochelle football team. We have a guest. And can we help you? Yeah.
This is a radio station?
Yeah, it is. Well, where do you think you are? That's okay.
No, when I overheard you, yeah, I realized.
Well, that's okay. Well, were you waiting for the train? You waiting for the train?
Yeah,
Oh, okay. That's next door.
yeah.
This happens all the time. Anyway, welcome, and don't get too wet today in the
It's
snow.
nasty out there.
Pardon? Yeah, it's going to be very
Hey,
nasty.
you know about closings and stuff, right?
What's that?
About closings and stuff?
Oh, yeah, we just did them, but they were just the school closings. There were not a lot. There's nothing here in southern Westchester.
So all stuff in there shall be open?
Yeah, everything in New Rochelle is going to be open so far. All righty? Thanks for saying hello.
All right.
Take care. Chris, we had a guest. That happens. You know, we're putting in a buzzer, by the way.
Oh, we are?
Yeah, so we can do that. We got to put in a buzzer because otherwise, we can't. I can see and you can't. They can come and hit you in the back of the head. See, but that's good. That's why you're there. See, they get you first.
Oh, yeah.
You are a buffer. A buffer. How do you feel about being
What's the joke about two people in the forest? They see a bear, and one of them puts on his sneakers. And his friend says, "You can't outrun a bear with sneakers." He said, and then he says, "I don't have to outrun the bear. I just have to outrun you."
I didn't think about that. That's excellent. That's an excellent idea. All right, I have a couple of other items here. I'm losing my mind. Here it is. Of course, the impeachment stuff goes to the next step today. Now, this is a more serious step, Chris. On Wednesday, the Judiciary Committee, and for those of you who remember Watergate, the Judiciary Committee is really where they draw up articles of impeachment if, in fact, they do. So let me see, this story coming out of California involves, of all places, the Salesians. Although I know we had a problem here with our Salesians too, trying to control Catholic orders in the world. Okay, I got to do a little more research before I talk about this story. Otherwise, I'm going to be talking. This one came out this morning, and I didn't get a chance to dig into it. But it has to do with certain religious orders where, out in California, where pedophile priests were operating for a long time. Now, we already told you about the impeachment. That's really not going to heat up until Wednesday. But listen to this. This is just a number of little talking points that I dug up, Chris, with a big shovel over the weekend. 70% of pure human blood, which is ready for transfusion, is found to contain some levels of Xanax.
Oh.
In other words, we have such
70%?
a stressed out society, so that the next time you get a little, it's probably de minimis, but still, the next time you get a little transfusion, you may feel a little
Something extra.
Yeah, a little something extra. A movie theater, after a package marked highly contagious human substances delivered to the wrong address. It really was for medical purposes. Now, here's this. 12 sets of newborn twins were born in Missouri in one day. What are the odds of that?
Wow.
See, what we need to do is go back 9 months earlier and find out what was going on with those couples. What were they drinking or eating? Now, this story, Canadian woman who is allergic to the cold fears for her life going outside. I have a question for this woman. Why are you living in Canada?
And also, don't come to the Radio Westchester studios.
No, what she should do is get her butt on a plane, and you got the whole American Southwest, and everybody's welcome here, but Canadians especially. Mm-hmm. They're our neighbors. There may as well be.
No, you would think there are better places to live than Canada
if you're allergic to cold.
Yes.
I mean, it's like if you're a hockey player, it's heaven. But yeah, okay. Oh, look at this. Cleveland Browns head coach seen wearing Pittsburgh started a T-shirt 2 weeks after the brawl. Pittsburgh started it. Wow. Look at this. Some nursing homes are illegally evicting elderly and disabled residents who can't afford to pay. You're just a piece of garbage, one evicted nursing home resident said. They'll kick you right out on the curb. Well, that's a whole interesting problem. So long as it's done legally, it's relatively easy now to get Medicaid when you get that age and don't have a lot of income. So I'm surprised that these people are getting kicked out. But wow. All right. Do you know who the Reds, Trevor Bauer, is he any good?
He's okay. A mid-level starter.
He has a $300,000 sports car destroyed. $300,000. Why would you spend $300,000? I guess because you can.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Are these people arguing outside, or are they just having a good time?
No one's having a good time at 6:52 in the morning. That's arguing.
All right. This is all good. I love these little one-offs. A little fun to fill the time. You want to join the conversation? 914-222-3141. But we're just having good old-fashioned fun here. World's first cell phone detection cameras were rolled out in Australia. The Australian state of South Wales, their high-definition detection cameras on Sunday designed to catch drivers using cell phones behind the wheel. That is a good deal. If they should do that. But you know what? You still see. I saw 87 people over the weekend with their headphones to their ears. You're supposed to. I thought all the cars had hands-free now.
They do, but hooking up a phone to a Bluetooth, it's a little complicated. So I can imagine it can be. So I can imagine if you don't really know how to do it.
Now you're going to get me started.
It's just easier just to drive around with the phone up to your ear like a crazy person.
With another Bob's beef. See, now you started me off. Why am I faster than every computer in my life? In other words, why do I have to click twice to get you up? Why by the time I click the second time, I turn you back off because you never came on in the first place? Why when I'm trying to read a story and do my news research do I have to see pop-up ads moving it down, moving it up?
Yeah, and it's just getting worse and worse.
And I'm going to tell you, I do not back off this. I know it's old-fashioned. I don't care. You still get a better take on the news by going to the newspaper. Mm-hmm. And all of these apps that I bought, I am going to switch them back to hard paper.
Really?
I mean, it's the Times is I'm going to keep because you can get all the, the way they format it, the one I bought there, the way they format it, I can get right to the opinion section or story. But you don't get a feel for the whole day, particularly with all the ads and all the nonsense and all the BS and all the interruptions and the fact that computers, as much as they say they're fast, unless you have a $1,500 computer, you have the greatest connection on the planet coming in through your phone system or whatever it is. Mm-hmm. It's slow. And the slowest thing now, can anyone tell why is Facebook gone so slow? No, I'll be off, the day I'm off the radio, I'll be off Facebook, by the way, other than for hockey stuff. But why is it so slow? Can someone tell me why it's so slow? Why you have to sit there any day? It's going to come up now. Any day might have Why? Chris, I depend on you for these answers.
I think it's the prevalence of video. I think that's part of it. A lot of video when you're scrolling past, and that'll slow things down, especially if you're not on a fast computer or a new phone.
You think somebody should tell?
A lot of pictures.
You're right. Like somebody should tell the people, and I won't name the website. When you go to a newspaper website, I didn't go to you for video.
Oh no, that's the worst.
I didn't go to you for video. I don't want to hear some little twerp, some guy or gal telling me about it. I want to read it.
No, has anyone ever watched one of those videos? I don't think so. You see the video, the first thing you do is look for the X to get rid of it.
Look for a little box. Yeah, I can't wait to get me started on. I feel better. I don't care about this guy. Pete Davidson. Why is this guy, this Saturday Night Live weirdo, so popular? Or is it because he's
always in the news because he's dating these supermodels and then he overdoses.
What he is, he's like right out of what my conservative friends would say, the snowflake zone. He broke up with his woman. He's ready to jump off a building. He had a problem on the show. He's ready to jump in front of a car. He's sad. He's not sad. His hair is green. His hair is red. Just leave me alone. All right. Utah teacher tells a boy excited to be adopted by two dads. It's nothing to be thankful for. Wow, that's tough.
Oof, yeah.
Yeah, you also have some woman was denied communion because she's gay. See that? I forget which state that was in. This is a strange country, America. For a country that's free, there are parts of it that ain't that free. How weak is the industrial economy? No, I don't care about that. Frozen. Did you ever see this Frozen movie? The New York.
I've seen parts of it. I've tried to avoid it, but when you have two nieces under the age of 8, you kind of by osmosis you see some of it.
I was so I love movies, right? And we don't do enough about movies, but we'll be getting a show on that too. The New York Times did its 10 or 15 greatest movies of the decade. Oh my God. They did with the New York Times. I love the New York Times, and I know a lot of people, conservatives, don't like it, but it's my favorite newspaper. For sports, by the way, nothing beats the Post, but the Times is my favorite newspaper for opinion and getting into in-depth in stories. And to keep them balanced, okay, I do believe there's going to be my guest, but to keep it balanced, and we'll get to that guest in a moment, to keep it balanced, what I do, okay, is I make sure I read the Wall Street Journal, which has the opposite political view, but also the same in depth. Mm-hmm. But they're my favorite paper. But they did a movie review. It was filled, we'll be right with you, it was filled with all this art house nonsense. All this art house nonsense. Stuff that nobody cares about or ever heard of. The flight of a gull with one leg. Please,
that was
give us it was a really great movie.
It was. Underrated.
Or the story of an embryo that couldn't decide her sex until it was 8 weeks in the womb. Good grief. Anyway, all righty. We do have to go to our next guest. And before we do that, we've got 2 minutes to do that. We're going to have Chris share the weather with you one more time, and then we'll be back. Yeah, Chris.
Good morning. It is 35 degrees here in New Rochelle. It'll get up to about 40. There'll be a mix of rain and snow throughout the day, mostly in the afternoon, cloudy and windy. Now, north of 287, there's a winter storm warning through tomorrow morning. South of 287, a winter storm advisory. Tonight, snow at times will taper off a little after midnight. Down here around New Rochelle, possible 1 to 2 inches. As you get further north, it gets to 3 to 6, maybe a foot even farther north than that in Dutchess County, stuff like that. Tomorrow, sunny, 39 degrees. Wednesday and Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds with a high around 40 both days. Weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. It's voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Thank you very much, Chris. As we close in on 7 o'clock in about 2 minutes, we're going to talk with our friends at the American Red Cross. But first, this top of the hour is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, a top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. The law firm of Payne & Kahn, Aging Issues Management, Aging Issues Radio, plug-in virtual reality, and our friends at Dominic Cigars. Now, after the shopping rush of Black Friday we just went through, Cyber Monday today. I give a hoot about, let me make this official. I don't care about Cyber Monday, but if you do, good. Comes the charitable day called Giving Tuesday. That's tomorrow. This year, the American Red Cross is asking everyone to help them support their mission to provide shelter, food, and comfort to people across the country whose lives are upended by disasters. Trevor Riggin, an American Red Cross Vice President of Disaster Cycle Services, shares how we can support people in need by providing both financial and blood donations. Let's say good morning, okay, to Trevor Riggin. Good morning, Trevor. How are you?
Good morning, Bob. Doing great. How are you?
Oh, good. Thank you for joining us this morning. You know, we look around and we see that an awful lot of the disasters that we have had to confront and or engage, they're still lacking in resources. They're still lacking in funding. Tell us about Giving Tuesday and what you guys have done or will do as we go into 2020.
Well, first of all, thank you for having us on. But Giving Day is just a great opportunity to share the critical need for resources in the entire charitable sector, but especially for the Red Cross. You know, right now we see every 2 weeks on average, we see a major disaster happen in the U.S. And that ranges from the wildfires we've seen this year in California, floods from Hurricane Dorian, the tremendous flooding from Tropical Storm Imelda, tornadoes and floods in the Midwest, Nebraska to Arkansas. And we've seen those numbers grow over the last 5 years. In fact, billion-dollar disasters have increased every year the past 5 years. But that's not the only disaster we respond to. The big disasters hit the headlines. The small disasters impact families. So every year we respond to more than 60,000 disasters, most of those single-family fires. And Giving Tuesday is just such a great opportunity to help the Red Cross make sure we have safe shelter, meals, snacks, critical supplies, mental health support on hand and ready for those that need it.
You know, as a news guy, we've had some crises here in Westchester, and I've been out when I was a field reporter. And I've been out there and been to the shelters that you guys set up, and I can say firsthand that you do a good job. A concern that I have, and you touched on it a little earlier, is we did a story earlier today, in fact, about global warming. We're at risk of having it, or let's call it climate change, get out of hand. We're seeing floods, we're seeing tornadoes, we're seeing weather with powerful storms not really seen before, forest fires, etc. This has to be increasing the demand for your services. How are you guys coping with that?
Well, as I mentioned before, and you hit it on the head, there are more disasters today than yesterday. We are seeing right alongside of that is more need than yesterday. What we're also seeing is a tremendous resilience in our communities to step forward to help, to volunteer, to be a part of the response, to join the Red Cross in that effort, which is why Giving Day is so important, to help remind people to join us in these major disasters and small disasters around the country. We are always looking for more volunteers. That's the engine that drives our response. Over 90% of our workforce is volunteers, and that's who we depend on each and every day. And the financial donations, make sure that we're ready. We are increasingly looking at where we need to improve our readiness, increase our supplies, at those points of need, places where we're seeing repetitive disasters like Northern California with wildfires, Hurricane Alley with the storms that are coming each and every year, and even tornadoes across the Midwest. We have to make sure we're ready for this increasing number and the impact of those events.
Trevor, I'm aware, in fact, I only became aware of it recently, that the Red Cross also helps veterans, particularly this time of year. What do you do for them, and how long have you been doing that?
So we've been supporting military families for almost as long as we've been around, 138 years. And every day we support men, women, and veterans and their families. They have a variety of unique challenges because of their service in the military. And one of the things we do is provide a 24/7 communication support through our Hero Care network to make sure our men and women in uniform are getting support while they're deployed, but also their families get support back here at home. And if an emergency arises at home, a baby's being born, a loved one is sick, we have volunteers and staff to make sure we get them home safely to be with their family. We're also the largest provider of free professional services, volunteer services for recovering wounded warriors in many facilities across the country. And we also have food, housing, and mental health support for the families of the military back here at home that can call our Hero Care network and get that emergency support.
Wow, that's really good to do, particularly during the holiday season. Another thing during the holiday season, and I want to remind our guests, that voice you hear is that of Trevor Riggin. He's a senior vice president at the American Red Cross, and we're talking about Giving Tuesday. That's tomorrow, because the Red Cross needs your help. Now, another way they need your help regards blood. The holiday season can be a tough time for collecting blood. How can people meet these needs for hospital patients?
Well, you're exactly right. Blood donations are always needed, but especially during the holiday season. We saw it just the past few days with some bad weather across the Midwest and the Northeast, where blood drives may have got canceled. People's schedules were changed last minute, so they may have missed that scheduled donation they were about to make. And so we need that critical, steady supply of blood. We provide nearly 40% of the nation's blood supply, and each donation can save up to 3 lives. And so you can go to redcrossblood.org, sign up for a donation today, find your closest blood drive, and make sure you make that life-saving gift.
Wow, that's a wonderful thing. Okay, let's get down to cases now. We want people to help you. How can they do that? What means are available? What processes to pay as well?
So incredibly easy. Go to redcross.org/gift, make a financial donation. Every single one of those gifts will make sure we're providing the right supplies, the right help at the right time to families in need from disasters, supporting our men and women in uniform and their families. And then you can also go to redcrossblood.org and make a blood donation, sign up for local blood drive and make a blood donation that could save up to 3 lives.
You know, before you go, a couple more minutes, if I may, before you go, what is the biggest problem that you see ahead? Why you need continued funding? I mean, they'll be Giving Tuesday, but then people will move on with the rest of their lives. But what can you tell us in terms of keeping the Red Cross in our thoughts?
The emergencies don't stop, and whether it's a new disaster, someone's home that burns down in a neighborhood. I'm here in Washington, D.C., a neighborhood in D.C., that family's standing at the curb as the Red Cross volunteers show up and put a blanket around them, help them find a place to stay. That happens 200 times a day across the country.
200?
Or it's a military thing. 200 times a day. Or a military family trying to get home to be there for the birth of a baby or a loved one. Those emergencies happen every single day, multiple times a day. So that need is constant. And so the donations are constant as well, the need for donations.
Okay, one more time. Tell us how we can help. Tell us where we can go and what processes we can use to donate.
So to make a financial gift on Giving Tuesday and join millions of others in supporting the Red Cross and other charities, go to redcross.org/gift. Those gifts will make sure we have the supplies on hand to meet the needs of those impacted by disaster and the men and women in uniform we support and their families. You can also go to redcrossblood.org to sign up to make a blood donation today to save up to 3 lives.
Okay, I want to thank you very much, and you have a great day. Please keep doing what you're doing. We will always be here for you.
Thank you so much, Bob.
All righty, take care. And he, of course, Trevor Riggin from the Red Cross. Happy Thanksgiving, to you. We didn't get a chance to tell you. We're going to take a quick break, and I think Mitch is on the phone. Mitchell, I take it that's you.
That is me, Bob. How are
Hey,
you?
welcome. Thank you so much for calling. Happy Thanksgiving and the post-Thanksgiving to you and yours, my friend. What's on your mind?
Well, I want to wish you and yours a very happy Thanksgiving. And let me start by asking you a question.
Sure.
When was the last time you took off for the Thanksgiving holiday?
Many, 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 many years ago. Let me tell you, it's just a ball. Well, I did have some other work to do, but let me just tell you that it's part of being in this business. So you have to accept it. Your family doesn't accept it, and your friends don't accept it, but it's a part of it's like, New Year's, you get a lot of work. Christmas, sometimes you have to work. It's the nature of the business. So, but thank you nonetheless. What else is on your
I'm
mind?
glad you got. Well, I guess we all saw what broke and what happened, and a couple of thoughts I just want to have about that is, number one, clearly, even those who are not pro Fayho had to acknowledge that she handled the situation unbelievably, and exactly by the book and how it should have been handled. But the thing that I'd like to point out, which I was kind of amazed at, what a sieve the Board of Ed has been the last 3, 4, 5 years, where nothing's kept secret.
Right.
And I got to give her credit that nobody, I mean, there were some people who thought there got to be another shoe, there got to be something else, but nobody had any idea what it was. And that got to be a credit to her, and we got to commend her for, number one, protecting the coach's reputation. It was, at the end of the day, he actually broke the news, I believe, but it wasn't the Board of Ed, which is appropriate. They should not have ever shared that information. So, whether you like it, dislike her, whatever you think of her, it's special character to take incoming, know you're in the right, and not be able to share why you're in the right.
Well, that's a price of leadership, by the way.
Well, yes, and that's my point. I think, again, whatever we think, of the lawsuit, whatever, she demonstrated in this particular instance excellent leadership, and leadership that I have not seen on the Board of Ed for a number of years. But again, as you know better than I, there were no secrets in the Board of Ed for many years.
No, there weren't. And one of the things that troubled me, and I know we spoke about this a little bit, but the Interreligious Council put out a letter, very regrettable, because the timing of it and its criticism of the superintendent came out during this issue with the coach, and it had absolutely nothing and should have had nothing to do with her selection. And it was very regrettable. It is a stain on this otherwise wonderful organization that they piled on like that. So disappointed.
Well, if I could say a couple of things, because I did speak to one of the people on the board. They actually shared with me that they regretted the timing of it, and they actually reached out to Dr. Fayho and the board to say that it had nothing to do with the coach and that they regretted it. And they actually shared with me that they thought that she did everything by the book, and made, the thing I think we could agree or disagree is whether clergy should get involved in
in this case,
decisions.
I brought this up with, you know what it is? They're not really clergy. It's a civic organ. To be fair to them, and I got to be fair to them because I'm going to reverse this on them. In their letter, they were very strident about how they were keeping their eye on her and they were going to hold her accountable. Well, they should know now that we've held them accountable for their ill-timed and rather mean-spirited letter.
Yeah, just if I may, to the best of my knowledge, I think they all are clergy and do represent, and most of them represent houses of worship throughout New Rochelle. What I found a little uncomfortable about the letter was when they said they deputized themselves.
Yes, that's my point.
And with all due respect to them, and they're much, number one, I would say, if she did something that was morally wrong according to the Quran or the Bible or whatever, then by all means.
Oh, no. Please don't bring that up. We'll get into a whole nother area. Half the stuff in some of these books is immoral itself, so let's not go there. Plus, let me tell you another area where I'm going to hold them accountable. Let me just get in, because I was so torqued off by that letter. We're going to look into what it takes to become a leader of some of the organizations listed there. We want to be sure that there are no mail-in divinity schools leading that thing.
Well, and I'm not going to go there, but what I did
I went there because they need to stay out of this stuff. If they're going to be mean-spirited, then they should keep their opinions to themselves.
Well,
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And again, excuse me. Yes, and a fair argument, but again, I'm
going to start a church myself.
They're deputizing, and I said to
deputize.
It's like, who appointed you guys to be the sheriff? And I turned it around and I said, should the Board of Ed deputize someone to monitor your sermons and your?
Yeah, thank you. Good for you. Yes, Mitchell.
And I think the answer to that is no. The Board of Ed shouldn't get in their business. And so, I was disappointed. I've known about this letter, oh, good Lord, since the summer. And I fought with several of them over the summer saying, I don't think it's an appropriate letter. They held it for 4 months. It went through a number of drafts. And again, when they finally did let it go, it sort of backfired because the timing, was horrendous. And of course, it came, I think, a day before the news broke about the coach, which, I got to be honest, Bob, but, I'm praying, and I'm sure many are, that the allegations don't have merit.
Well, yeah, and I don't know. We'll never know what happened 30 years ago. I went from one monologue one day to another one the next, and one of them was that this man needs to be given due process. And I have to tell you, and please forgive me, Lord, boy, what a hypocrite I can be, which is that well, no, I need to be more blunt than that. It must have been 20 years ago when people started coming forward, mostly women, but again, women have been abused since time immemorial, so you got to take it half seriously at least. Oh, I have a repressed memory. I was assaulted by a duck when I was, and then it turned out to be nonsense. I don't want to hear about these repressed memories. Tell me it's say that, oh, I forgot. Tell me that I recognize his face. Don't tell me it was a deeply repressed memory. So I'm going to give the coach some slack there.
Yeah, listen, I got to, as a guy, I had concerns about, allegations being 30, 35. By the way, I had those same concerns against the Supreme Court justice.
No, me too. No, don't get me wrong. Don't get me wrong. See, I'm not. Nobody screams louder than I do about how misogynist the world is and how women have hurt men. But also, men deserve due process as well.
But on the flip side, I just want to say, with the Supreme Court justice, while I felt it was 40 years, it was unfair. The witness came up to me as being very credible.
Me too. Can I make a distinction here? That woman didn't say it was a repressed. She didn't use the term. It was a repressed notion. She said it really happened. She was credible. When you start off with it was a repressed memory, I'm a little dubious. That's all I'm saying.
Well, I hear you. And to me, listen.
The truth is painful.
Bob.
Yeah, I'm here, brother.
You and I, you've talked about, psychologists and so forth. So look, that's a legal, a medical mumbo jumbo term, repressed memory.
That's what I'm talking about.
I don't think people actually have repressed memories. They try to forget it.
You can. Oh no, you can repress a memory. I mean, I've had some issues when I was in a foster home, and I don't know how clearly I remember it, but I remember what I remember. you know. So
Well,
anyway,
but that's my point. We remember what we remember. I don't think, it's much. Look, again, I think I'm of two minds of it because someone who was sexually assaulted or abused, I don't think there's be a statute of limitations on it. On the other hand, if I'm a due process person, it's hard to defend yourself after 30, 35 years ago. And I could only use myself as an example. My memory of what happened 30, 35 years ago, when I'm with my friends, I got one story, they got another story, and my third friend has a
that's
third
true.
story.
History
for
does
the
do that.
same event.
However, in terms of the problems in the Catholic Church and now even the Boy Scouts, what makes this a little different is you have this very powerful hierarchy that was covering it up, that was aiding and abetting, that was enabling.
Yeah.
And in many cases, it was doing that because it didn't want to deal with issues that were actually benign, but based on these rules that you were, again, this is why I laughed when you said, well, if someone's doing something that's against what's in their book, I mean, a church wouldn't give a woman communion the other day because she's gay. So I don't want to hear them come out one day. I don't want to hear the Interreligious Council come out one day and say, good, we don't want people to get communion. That's why they got to be careful with what they do. But the church is a little different. The church was an enabling and an abetter because they didn't want people to know that it's a reasonably gay institution in the priesthood. Which is, I don't have a problem with. I don't have a problem with that, but they do. So
yeah, and again, I don't want to get into church, that aspect, but again, I think we're all praying that the
truth is a
allegations are
painful
not true. I think we, the young lady or the woman at this point should have a right to speak.
Absolutely.
And I'm praying that the allegations aren't serious or not true, or whatever. But she does have a right. I think we all realize that if it did happen, she has every right to come forward and speak.
Absolutely.
So I'm a mixed mind. But again, let me not get into that area because I think that's actually a rabbit hole. I just want to commend the school board. I just want to commend the school board for I think going by the book with a very difficult situation, and I want to commend them, all of them, actually, because they all knew and they all took a lot of abuse, and they kept silent, they kept quiet, and it was the right thing that the coach deserved that privacy, regardless of the incoming that the school board was taking. So I just thought it was handled properly, and I don't want to judge her on a case by case basis.
No, I understand.
At least but at least on her first really challenging situation, I think she demonstrated that she really does have the chops to do the job.
Well, thank you very much. Take care, Mitchell, and thank you for the call. How perfect. Vince is coming up next, and we have things we want to talk with him about apropos. But see, Chris, this is how we find out if he was listening. And Chris, here's something we're going to put Jake on to research. How difficult would it for me to get some sort of a mail-order divinity degree and start a church? Probably not a lot. Good morning, Vince Russo. How are you?
Good morning, Bob.
You joined us at a good time. Were you listening?
Yes, I was.
Yeah, I have so many mixed feelings when it comes to this stuff regarding the churches weighing in on stuff, because then you get into what, serious, really meaningful stuff, and then you get into hocus pocus stuff. And when is the hocus pocus first? By the way, let me start out with this. Do you know if I could get a mail order divinity degree to start a church and then join the Interreligious Council?
Actually, you probably can. I don't know that with firsthand knowledge, but I think you can.
What shall I name my church? The Church of
what's happening now.
The Church of the Open Mic. I don't know, and I don't mean to be so hard on that group. It's a wonderful group that was founded by a man I absolutely adored, Rabbi Amo Wall. But now they wade into this political thing, and so they're fair game for me. Anyway, I did want to ask you about that a little bit. Yeah, I know you found God, and we kid you about it all the time because of your years of searching, and it's actually good for you and commendable for you that you did. But your particular denomination, do they have any fire and brimstone stuff? Like, do they want to take gay people out and torture them or any of that stuff?
No.
Good.
No, they don't. Just like any other organized religion, they have people who are more conservative than others, who feel that, that the religion should be practiced in a certain way and others in a more liberal way. But no, by and large, they don't have fire and brimstone. Nobody's going to hell.
Well, that's good. By the way, you'll have to forgive me. The reason I snickered, and Goletta does this all the time. I've always said I wanted to do my Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, and he just sent me a text.
Well, I think I think
Go ahead.
I think how hell is defined is watching the Montreal Canadiens this year. I watched them last night play Boston. Oh my word.
Yeah, I saw the score. I thought about you.
They were losing. They were winning 1-0 after 2 periods, and then they just collapsed. The other night, who the heck were they playing? I don't even remember. Oh, the Devils. They played the Devils, and they were winning 4-1.
Yeah.
They ended up losing 5-4. I do not get what's going on with that team.
And the Devils are so bad. If they were Undertakers, nobody would die.
Yeah. I've been saying for years that Montreal needs to get a goal scorer. And when they traded P.K. Subban, they had a golden opportunity. P.K. was a highly sought-after defenseman, and they could have gotten a goal scorer in return, and yet they got Shea Weber, who's a good defenseman. I mean, there's no question about that. But that's not what they needed. They needed somebody who can score, and for the last 5 or so years, they haven't been able to get somebody. And it looks like they're not going to make the playoffs again. It's really pathetic.
Although at least they're not as bad as the Red Wings. The Red Wings were made the playoffs, folks, for a record 25 years in a row, and now they're paying for it. No draft choices for 25 years. They can't get out of their own way.
Well, last night Montreal lost to the Bruins. And it was like the 9th loss in a row. And they hadn't lost 9 games in a row since the 1930s or something like that. It's been 70-odd years. So they are in a bit of a tailspin. I think, the time has come for Carey Price to move on. I mean,
well, for his own good, yeah.
Yeah, he's a good goaltender. He's still up there, but he's not the top goaltender in the league by any
Although
stretch.
going back to P.K. Subban, since if you introduce hockey, we'll do it all day because I love this stuff. P.K. Subban, I kind of noticed it towards the end of Nashville. He's lost a step, and I don't quite know why. I don't know if it's weight. I don't know what it is. But he when you see him get the puck and come out of his end, he doesn't have the same jump he used to have. I don't know what that is. I
think it's Lindsey Vonn,
No, that's wrong. That's wrong. Now, if you want to tell, no, because Justin Verlander still throws 100 miles an hour, and he's with my fave, Kate Upton. So you can't necessarily draw that. I'd be dead already, but anyway, so much for hockey. But going back to this, there's another story. And I did want to ask you about this, and it has nothing to do with your recent determination that the deity is on the mark. It has to do with the story we got to do more research on, a hugely well-documented story. We need to have a lot of reading to do. Came out today in the New York Times. Pedophile priest operating at a California school for decades. And what it did is it got into the different Catholic orders where it was prevalent. Mm-hmm. Whether it be the Salesians, Don Bosco, blah, blah, blah. The Salesians of Don Bosco, a Catholic religious order founded in 1859. I don't know if you saw over the weekend a really important story coming out of Germany. And Germany, of course, where the Reformation all began with Martin Luther and his 95 Theses on the wall of the church. The Catholic Church there is close to seceding because of the issue of celibacy and women in the church being victims of misogyny. And I'm going on the record. I hope they do. I think the Catholic Church needs that. And if it's not going to go along, for lack of a better word, peacefully, then it should happen.
Yeah, well, they do need to change, that's for sure. You see all of the ill behavior over the decades, and it's a shame because it taints a lot of people who are honest and good people. But boy, oh boy, have they had problems.
Well, you know what? Why they too? Well, they may continue to V. I think that as someone who loves to learn, and I know you do too, I realize now that I'm going to die before the world is a little more enlightened. Not that I could make it enlightened, but the church doesn't want to change because the vast majority of uber religious people want to be told what to do. So long as people want to be told what to do and need somebody else to give them a script of right and wrong, that from which they can behave like checklists, we're going to be stuck with these kinds of things. And I'm going to die before. It's just the way it is. Really, it's a disappointment. It's an honest one of my few regrets.
Yeah, but it's a shame because people have been told for 2,000 years what to do, and it's follow what Jesus is teaching.
Well, now you talk.
It's very simple, and so and that's what you should be doing. The church has been human construct. It has nothing to do with the Bible or what Jesus taught.
Well,
it's rules and regulations that have been put in place by man over the centuries in order to solidify their power and hold on to power, both political and religious, and hold on to their base.
Well, as you know,
so
God, I'm sorry.
You're not the rules and regulations and such from the church is really not based on what was taught by Jesus.
No, and Martin Luther famously, but also there was a flaw in his logic too. He said you don't need a person to tell you; you just need to read the Bible. But the Bible itself has its quirks, and again, it becomes a bylaw, a set of rules, statutes, if you will, that also had flaws in it. And then later on, he said it isn't even good works that'll get you into heaven. So even Martin Luther took it a certain X amount, and then other Protestant denominations took it further. But still, everybody needs a list. Everybody wants a set of rules. But I kind of default to what and I hate giving you credit for this, but, do what Jesus would do, and then you're probably in a good place. But, a lot of people would tell, if I did what Jesus did, I'd be a communist, so. And that's true.
That's true. Imagine that, helping other people, feeding the poor, taking care of the homeless.
Yeah.
Gee whiz, what a revolutionary concept that is. I mean, it's
why would you want to?
Wow, can't have any of that.
Those lazy bastards. 7:31. We're talking with Vince. No, but it's very interesting stuff because it makes me sound, and when I talk like this, anti. He hates God. No, not at all. And again, I still love a million things about the church, but the church clings to the things that allows it to control. And, it's almost like people supporting either the hard left or the hard right. If I concede anything, then I've been hanging my hat on a false hook all my life. And sometimes the church behaves like that. Like, what if we say now that, being gay is okay? Or what if we say that gay people can marry? Doesn't this whole deck of cards fall down? And it doesn't. But that's the fear.
Well, it doesn't. But, the fear is just like any other change in philosophy. You have to support your base. And if the base pretty much thinks that shouldn't be the change, then they're not going to change because they don't want to lose, X number of people who might be
customers,
their parishioners. But all religions in general are losing people by the droves. You look at every community, all of the different churches and such. The attendance at church and has been significantly declining, and I think that it's because people don't see the relevance, and it's kind of a shame because it could be very relevant.
Of course, it could be very relevant, but you need then to have relevant ideas. I guess I don't know when it'll change. We've improved a lot. I mean, several hundred years ago, we were killing each other over religion in the Western world, and in the Middle East, they still are. So we really haven't gone very far. You know, we're still, I've always tended to believe that we are still prepubescent people in terms of our intellectual and spiritual growth. We're still like not infant toddlers, maybe. The fact that we're still willing to die, that Northern Ireland, other than the political part and the rest of Irish, I mean, really? We still want to kill each other over this shit? Excuse my language, but it's amazing stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I think that, as I've said in a previous conversation, you know, my belief is that, you know, when you say, is Jesus Christ your Savior, yes, he's saving us from ourselves, because those natural instincts, tribalism, nationalism, are very detrimental, and, you know, Jesus is teaching that should not be the way to go.
No, do you know when there was that period when I wanted to become a priest, which predated me seeing a woman in jeans for the first time. But the one thing I really got and still do about what the Christian message was that the very dynamic that plagues individuals is the same dynamic that plagues mankind as a whole. It's conflict with itself. There's really a huge parallel there that I love. But anyway, Vincent, it is always a pleasure. We need to move on to the George Latimer and find out why we don't have a road over the Kensico Dam. I know it doesn't mean a lot to you. How's the snow up there in the northern New Jersey?
Well, we got yesterday was this little thin coating of this freezing rain, which is completely frozen. If I were to try to get out of my driveway today, it would be totally impossible. And then it's going to snow again, so I'm not exactly sure what we're going to be doing.
Well,
this is one of the world's greatest nuisances.
Well,
I think
be careful, Counselor. Anyway, I got to go to my next guest. I have him on hold, so we'll talk to you later.
Okay, Bob.
Thanks, brother.
Thank
Bye-bye. Right on time. I'm getting good at this job. All righty, let us reset. It is 7:35 on this Monday, December 2nd, 2019, and it is time for our weekly visit with the County Executive. Please welcome County Executive George Latimer. Good morning, County Exec.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
Pretty good. You know, it's not like when you first took office. I think your first week you had a snowstorm, but you have one to deal with today. What provisions are you making?
Well, sort of standard activities. We're expecting the snow to hit us a little later in the afternoon, which is bad because it'll hit us on or about the rush hour, the evening rush hour. And the problem with that primarily is you can't start to plow the roads until you have at least 3 inches of snow on the ground. So if it starts to fall and traffic is already out on the roads, then the plows don't have clear access to it. You know, Sunday night, last night, was the perfect time of the week to get a snowstorm because very little cars on the road. We're making sure we treat the surface of the Bronx River Parkway, which we have the direct responsibility for, in advance of any snow, so it makes it easier to plow the Bronx River, which is the only major road in Westchester County that the county government itself plows. We also plow the complex where the medical center, the county jail, and a number of buildings are over Valhalla, but the Grasslands complex. But other than that, when people say, well, how is the county plowing the roads? It's actually the cities and the towns and the villages that do the local plowing, and of course the state does it on the interstate highways. We will have more police patrols out on the parkways because we do police the Hutch, the Sawmill, the Cross County, so that, and the Bronx River, of course, so that we will be able to help stranded motorists should there be a problem or should we need to shut down a portion of the Bronx River Parkway for whatever reason, the water content, icing over, or whatever happens. The airport generally does not close, but traffic out of the airport is usually either diverted on landing if it's bad weather conditions, or takeoffs are limited. And if you're flying on a commercial flight, check with your carrier nice and early. You can get on an early flight out before the weather conditions start to get bad. We're told that it's going to get bad in the later afternoon. And so if you have the discretion to leave on an earlier flight out of Westchester, do that. The Beeline bus system has a weekday schedule. We start out on a weekday schedule. When the snow gets bad enough, if it reaches that point, which it very well may, then we adopt over to snow routes, which means some of the hillier routes, the streets in places like Yonkers and Ossining, the buses can't negotiate when it's slick. So what we do is we have alternate routes that the residents who use those routes regularly know of. Those are the snow routes, and those go around those places. And if you use the bus regularly, and then we go to snow routes, then you know you have to stand in different places to get the bus, or you'll be dropped off at different places. But that will, address that. We are in code blue for the Department of Social Services. That's also a county responsibility. And there we have to open up our shelters to pick up people who are homeless on the street, make sure they do not spend the night out in this kind of weather. You have the risk of losing your life if you do. And so that is the strategy in terms of social services. But as you can see, the county's responsibilities are very specific. We have very specific areas of authority and responsibility, and then many of the other things fall to other jurisdictions. I didn't create the system, but this is the system we have. And so in the areas where we're responsible for, policing roads, the Bronx River Parkway, the Valhalla campus, the social services, the airport, the bus routes, all of those things, we're on top of as best as we can be. But again, this snowstorm, as it evolves, if it does hit us 4 o'clock in the afternoon, that is not a good time for the evening commute, as you can imagine.
No, and this has been a very unpredictable storm. We all expected snow and ice this morning, even to the extent here in southern Westchester, but that has not materialized, fortunately. But now they tell us we may have the problem, as you suggested, for the evening commute.
Well, and the other thing is the events that happen. Now, over the weekends, we have Winter Wonderland up at Kensico Dam Plaza. We had to cancel it out yesterday. And a lot of other events were canceled that were a lot of fun events. Mistletoe Magic and Ride, and the Frosty Day Parade in Armonk. And there will be meetings and activities this evening that will also cancel, but those decisions get made during the day. So if you're planning to do something tonight that's on the schedule, the wise thing to do is to call and, mid to late afternoon, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, find out and call back. Don't assume that the answer at 2 o'clock will be the answer at 4 o'clock. But some of those activities will cancel, and it may save you a trip out of the house to go to something that you had planned to go to.
It's interesting when these things come up, having known you all these years, we get a chance to sort of get an inside baseball view. When the weather's bad, do you wind up staying up half the night? Do they call you in the middle of the night for advice, or do you get called to work? How does that work for a chief executive in a job like this?
I've only done this for 2 years, so I'll defer to friends like Andy Spano, who did it for 12 and has a better scope of things. When there's any kind of a crisis for which the county has to respond, I'm basically up and awaiting a call. It has not yet reached the point that said, George, you need to go to the Emergency Operations Center. But we have the EOC, the Emergency Operations Center in Hawthorne. And if you ever went there, it's down in the basement of a state government building. It's very impressive. And it brings together people from all these different groups. And if it gets to the point where there's certain decisions made, shut the airport down, shut off the Beeline bus systems, I may be involved in making those decisions. And we may make them with other people around us, almost like a situation room in the White House, for the obviously much more serious national issues. And so it's not a one-man band. It's not just my whim.
Of course not.
I do try to, but I do, consult with people who are more expert in these things and who've had years of experience if we're going to close things, if we're going to alter things as necessary. But, this is an emergency, and this is where my job as a county executive is very different from all of those years that I was a senator and an assemblyman and a county legislator. When you're a legislator, you have opinions and you share them. When you're an executive, mayor, governor, obviously up the line, you have the responsibility to make the decision. And sometimes the decision may not be at the 3 days later looking back. It may not have been the right decision. You may have canceled something prematurely. The weather was great. Or you didn't cancel something and the weather turned sour and it was a bust. So, with decisions are both praise and criticism, depending on which way you go.
Oh, it comes with the job. Our guest, of course, County Executive George Latimer. He joins us each and every Monday. We've been talking about the weather and what his responsibilities are when these things occur. Hey, apropos of the Kensico Dam, 2 things. One, actually, you should put a feather in your cap. We have a regular guest who's a Republican, an attorney, former investigator, and he gave you a compliment the other day, and I said, hey, let me tell him, someone from across the aisle. He said he thought you were doing a really good job, and he said he only had one question, though, which is kind of interesting. Will we ever reopen the road over Kensico Dam? He lives up, I guess, in the Pleasantville area.
It's very interesting that comes up, because outside of the line of attention, publicity, we have had meetings on that very point over the last 2 months. I'll tell you what I can tell you. First of all, the decision to close the road is primarily a decision made by the Department of Homeland Security
Of course.
and the New York City Department of Environmental Protection, which governs the reservoir and the control of the reservoir.
Mm-hmm.
When it was closed 19 years ago in the aftermath of 9/11, there's an obvious concern, and it still exists, that a terrorist activity on that road, which goes along the top of the Kensico Dam, if it could ever breach the dam, my goodness, the tragedy and the loss of life and property would be incalculable. That dam holds back, hundreds of thousands of tons of water that would sweep down the Bronx River Valley, would wipe out White Plains and all the way down the line. So it would be horrific. On the other hand, the question at hand for all of these years is there a way for us to secure that road and still allow it to be opened, if not all day long for all kinds of vehicles, as it once was, at least to be open part of the day for certain kinds of vehicles. So I've met with legislator Margaret Kunzio, who represents that area. She is a conservative and a Republican, but we worked across the aisle on this, and we both agree that we should try to determine if it can be opened safely and make a proposal to DEP and to Homeland Security. We've met with the supervisors of the two towns, Carl Pagenzi of Mount Pleasant and Mike Shalera of North Castle. Both of them are willing for us to take the step. So what we have to do is this. We have asked our DPW Transportation Commissioner, Hugh Grecian, to have a study, not a 6-month study, but study the road and determine if it hasn't been used in 18 years, what does it take to get the road surface and substance back to grade where you could allow traffic over it. And then number two, more importantly, we go to our Public Safety Commissioner, Tom Gleason, and we say, Tom, if we were to open the road, over what parameters do you think, for safety, you're a professional law enforcement person, consult with the two local police departments, and determine what do we have to do. I think we believe that if we do reopen the road, it is most likely going to be all trucks will be barred, and maybe heavy vehicles, maybe SUVs, we don't know, but we'll limit what can go over the bridge. We will probably make it one-way traffic in the morning to relieve commuter pressure and one-way traffic in the evening. I assume we would look at opening it around the school time so that people can go back and forth, because people who live on the east side of the dam in North Castle, North White Plains, attend schools in Valhalla in that district, which is one of which is on the other side of that bridge dam. So we would look at a limited use of it, and then the questions will be, what kind of intercept do we want to station a policeman at one side of the bridge, the ability to stop any vehicle that goes over, or they all come to a full stop and the police officer looks in before he lets them go over. That's a possibility. It's also going to be costly, because we're going to have to assign a post for police officers to handle that. And then what do we do if we do find somebody who's got explosives or something dangerous? But the plan would be to work up, once we understand the physical need of the road, it's probably going to need repair X million, and that won't be overnight. But once the road is capable of handling a certain amount of traffic, then we would put together a plan, and we would present it to DEP and to Homeland Security, and we'd say, under these parameters, we'd like to reopen the roadway. And then it's entirely in their hands. They could say yes and they could say no. But if we give them the best possible case, and we show that we're prepared as a county government to authorize it and stand behind it, then I think we have at least a fighting chance. And I do think, and this is controversial on some level, I do think the road can be reopened, I think under certain parameters and with certain security, and it is a vital link in that part of the county. And to reopen it is seen as the residents as really responding to a local concern that has been 20 years in the making.
Wow.
But there's a lot of steps to go through.
Oh, absolutely.
Before we're ready to go.
And the safety issue that does have to be paramount. 747, we're talking with George Latimer, County Executive here, first about the weather, and now very interesting analysis. Thank you about that road over the Kensico Dam. By the way, just this is personal, but it does involve something that you guys run. That Winter Wonderland, now, I've been there. I've done radio stories there. It's not a secret, but that is one of the most wonderful things, public things that goes on. What are the plans for it this year? I love that Winter Wonderland. I took my grandson ice skating there a couple of years ago. But it's great.
It's a lot of fun, and it will stay open on weekends, and then all through Christmas to New Year's when the kids are out of school. It will stay open until, I think, January 4th is the final date that it'll close. It is a lot of fun. There's lots of things to see and do up there. We had the official opening. Ken Jenkins, Deputy County Executive, was there for the official opening, I think, on Friday, right after Thanksgiving. And, what it does in a very general way is it gives you an alternative activity with the kids, or in our case, Bob, the grandkids.
Yeah.
Although grandkids are a long
very,
way away.
very.
And maybe in your case, not even the grandkids, because your grandkids are a little older. But the bottom line is that, parents are looking for fun things to do with kids. Winter Wonderland is one of those things to put on your checklist. And I think what it also shows is the diversity of the Parks and Recreation program in Westchester County. And there are people who think, well, parks aren't a necessity. That's a nice to have, not a necessary. And but wiser men than me built this system and had a golf course, public golf courses, public swimming pools, playland, which is a unique asset. And the Kensico Dam Plaza, I mean, they just didn't build a dam. They created a whole recreational setting there. And if you know the history, I'm sure you do because you're a student of these things. Kensico Dam Plaza was the terminus point of the Bronx River Parkway.
Yes.
The Bronx River Parkway was the first limited access highway created in America. Just like Playland was the first planned amusement park in the 20s, so was the Bronx River Parkway. And you would get in your, Model A, Model T, whatever it was, and you'd go
Not
up
me,
to the
but
Bronx.
others, yes.
No, others, yes. We're not quite that old. But they'd go up the Bronx River Parkway, and it would end in this beautiful plaza in front of this dam where you can picnic and you can enjoy, quote-unquote, the country coming out of the city. And, of course, when it was originally built, the Bronx had just become part of New York City. In 1898, it was still part of Westchester. So, long story short, it's a beautiful setting. It's a beautiful event. The Westchester Parks Foundation is the sponsoring group of it. And so credit Joe Stout and his team. He's a former commissioner of recreation.
I know Joe.
Now he heads Parks Foundation. And it's a great event, and you should put it on your calendar if things
You really should. I know. Great Christmas tree. You should brag about the tree, too. It's always a giant tree. It's very pretty. And you've even got for people who, it's too cold. Well, you have those heaters, those outdoor heaters where people can go over and congregate.
And there's a tented indoor function as well where you can go and get things to eat. And they have a couple of animals that you can look at and all this stuff. So it's really targeted for a lot of fun. Obviously, this time of the year, you expect to have cold weather, brisk, outdoor type of things. You're going to bundle up and go. But you'll have a good time.
No, it's fun.
I think it's something, as I said, you put on your list of things to do.
And as you mentioned, there's that indoor part, and I'm not trying to sell it. I just really enjoy it, where if you want to go and sit down and eat and get warm, there's a big indoor tent there for you to do that. It's just and for people who like Christmas lights, the way the trees are lit up, and the different things, that's really cool. Well, I'm just a mush when it comes to Christmas.
It's a beautiful setting, and I will tell you, I think that the assets of Westchester, the park system in Westchester in general, you tend to forget it. Many times people, the percentage of us who are engaged in the government of Westchester and the people who are critics of the government of Westchester and the other governments, they started conversations with their tax rates and what they think of as a government that they don't really understand all the things we do and don't necessarily value them because in their world, it's how much money they're spending. But when you look at the assets, public assets that we have and how we use them, I think Westchester's a lot to be proud of.
751 County Executive George Latimer, our guest. We saw a couple of stories the other day where and this is specifically on the increase for the county legislators. I know there's some debate going on. Do you expect the proposed increases to change at all? Do you think that this is just going to be a discussion and then we move on, or do you think that might change?
Well, I think there's different points of view in the legislature right now. And, when I was a legislator and I was in the middle of it, the last thing I wanted was the county executive to poke his nose into what we consider to be our business. I do believe as a county executive that it is the prerogative of the legislature to discuss compensation, and the county executive should not have authority over it. And that's basically because you tip the scale in the direction of the county executive. So you want a pay raise? I'll sign off on it. You'll jump through these 5 hoops. And that to me seems to be an imbalance of power. But there are different schools of thought of the Board of Legislators. Look, I mean, they have gone 15 years without a structural pay increase. I went 13 years as a state legislator, no increase in pay. And, people can say on the outside, well, you knew what the salary was when you took it and all that stuff. But let me tell you something. If you have rising bills and you want a person to serve in a public office and you never want to ever have a pay raise, then I think what you're showing is sort of a mean-spirited ideology. you're not looking at people in a certain way. If you think that the legislators are bad, they're not representing your point of view, you don't like them for that reason, then your reason to vote them out is you don't like their action and their work. But to argue that they shouldn't be paid, and really the reason is that you don't like the political philosophy or party they're affiliated with, I think is pretty insincere. Now, having said that, the amount of the raise is very debatable and subjective. And I will tell you this much: I was involved in raising one salary of an elected official in our administrative pay plan, which was included with but separately determined, and that was the pay of Tim Idoni. Tim Idoni as county clerk, and we know from the New Rochelle setting that he was mayor for many years. There's controversial issues that came up during his mayoralty, as there have been controversial issues during my tenure in public office too. But Tim has been an outstanding county clerk. He's had the job now into his fourth term. He's been elected 4 times to the job. He never had a pay raise from 2005 when he first got the position. So we put in for a pay raise for Tim Idoni. I think it was justified. Other than that, the only other elected official is me, and I didn't take a pay raise.
Yeah, how long
and
since
my attitude is,
yeah, we just got a.
let's be candid. I just got a new job, so I really can't complain.
No, but how long since the county executive position had an increase? Do you know?
Since the Andy Spano years, for sure. I don't think there was any increase during Rob's tenure as well. And as it stands now, there are a significant number of top managers in the county government that get paid more than the county executive. But you ask yourself, if you have a commissioner of health who has a medical degree, is an MD, and also has a public health degree, that's specialized education. And if I have to hire somebody out from the marketplace, I'm going to have to pay more than just a politician's salary.
Yes.
We have a coroner who's also the commissioner of labs and research. That position is open right now. We have somebody in an acting role. To find somebody who has the skills to do autopsies and is a medical doctor and will also manage a department, I can't pay them a politician's salary. In fact, some of the people that work for me now, John Noon is our county attorney. He left a partnership in a New York City law firm to take on this job. Now, he's near retirement, so to him, the money, I guess, he's done well for himself over the years. He probably is being paid 1/4 as county attorney what he made as a major lawyer in the city.
Oh, for sure.
They're getting a 6-figure salary in the county. Joan McDonald was a commissioner in 2 separate state departments, in Connecticut and New York. She could make as much money as she's making now doing part-time consulting around the country and never have to show up to work every day, and yet she's doing it and doing it well. Catherine Choppy, who's our communications director, she did the same job, similar job with Mercy College.
Mercy College.
She would be in great demand. Yeah, she'd be in great demand in the private sector for a hell of a lot more money than we're paying her. So my point in all of this is it's one thing to tell a politician, George Latimer, George, you ran for this job, this is the pay, and I accepted for 4 years. I did not put my name in for pay increase. Over the course of the next few weeks, you're going to see that Ed Day, who's the county executive of Rockland County, he's been in a couple of terms. He's going to be paid more than me. And Rockland is nowhere near as big as Westchester, nor as complicated to run. But it's not about that. It is about how do you perform. And so now the question comes, how much do the legislators, plunk down? And do the people of Westchester believe that their individual legislator or as an entity they performed? And I would tell you, if you look objectively, you'll see that this legislature that's sitting there now did a lot of work and did a lot of pieces of legislation, did a lot of different things. And again, I think a lot of it comes down to ideology. If you don't like the ideology of the people in office, then you use this as an argument. But you can't make it partisan, because I'll tell you this. Right now, you have Mayor Ron Belmont, Republican of Harrison, who is looking to get a $30,000 increase
I saw that.
in salary. And I'm not trying to say that's a bad decision. That's for the people of Harrison to decide, and for the members of the Harrison board to decide. But Ron's a Republican. Do I say, oh, it's because he's a Republican? No, it's because he believes he deserves a pay raise, and his board, and that's the decision on it. So when I hear people doing the political attack thing, I understand what it is. It's any port in a storm. And you're
well, of course. Although county executive, we the sentiment we get here is that, and again, the raise is for the position, not the person. But most people I talk with believe that your position should pay more than the deputy position, and at some point in time, I think people are going to want to see that, even for future people that run. So, how does that come about? If you don't propose it,
go. No, I know we got to go, but I would say this much: in 1 week, I both did not seek another $30,000 in salary.
Right.
And I cut off 4 years from my potential tenure. So I would say you don't see a politician do that every day. Leave money on the table and cut short the number of years they might serve. So I think what it tells you is I have a mindset about how I want to do this job. I have a 4-year authority. 2 of those years are gone. I'm proud of the 2 years we've had. They've not been perfect 2 years, but I think they've been good years. We've accomplished things that we've set out to do. We have 2 more years ahead. This year coming is going to be tough. State budget is going to be tough, and I think they may dump expenses down on the county, which is going to make my job next year at this time much more difficult than it was this year. But I'm in it for the 4 years, and if it turns out that I seek another 4, you'll know sometime next year about this time, because with early voting, you pretty much have to announce right after November the year before. And then we'll see what people think. Do they think we've done a good job or not?
Anything you want to shout out about before you go, County Executive?
Yeah, this is budget week, so while it doesn't, transfix everybody's attention, the Board of Legislators will have meetings this week, their final public hearing on the county budget, and then a week from today, they, in theory, will take final action on the budget, which we hope will be the end of the trail, and that will put the 2020 budget in place. So it will be a busy week. We'll be at the board a lot and up at the,
Okay. Well, thank you very, very much. Take care.
Always a pleasure.
Well, the pleasure's ours. County Executive George Latimer, thanks very much, and have a safe day traveling around the county. Take care. County Executive George Latimer, everyone. And we're going to take a quick break for the weather. And guess who's in the chair to talk about his picks of the week? Jake. We'll be back with Jake in just one moment. But first, it's time for the weather with Chris Conway, and then we'll have him summarize sports, too, before we get to Jake and Jake's picks, brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars. What's with the weather, Chris?
The weather is 34 degrees. It is currently overcast, maybe some light rain where you are, and maybe not. Today it'll be cloudy and windy throughout the day. A mix of rain and some snow. Temperatures in the low 40s. Now, north of 287, there's a winter storm warning through tomorrow morning. South of 287, just a winter weather advisory. North of 287, you may be looking at 3 to 6 inches. Tonight, snow at times will taper off after midnight, possible 1 to 2 inches down here along the Sound Shore. Tomorrow, sunny, 39 degrees. Wednesday and Thursday, carbon copies, mix of sun and clouds, 40 degrees, your high for both. Weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. It's voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And turning to sports, I believe.
Go ahead.
We will start with the NFL, another disastrous day for both local pro teams. The Jets,
humanity.
The Jets teased their fans, a 3-game winning streak, possibly the end of the terrible football we've seen for the last couple of years, but no. The Jets lose to the 0-11 Cincinnati Bengals 22-6. It's the first time in NFL history a team has lost twice in one season to 2 different winless teams that were at least 0-7 at the time. So good job, Jets. The Giants got crushed in the snowy Meadowlands by the Green Bay Packers, 31-13. That gives the Giants the worst record in the NFC at 2-10. The second worst record in football. Only the aforementioned Bengals, with 1 win, have a worse record. NBA, Miami 109, Brooklyn 106, Boston 113, the Knicks 104. That is the Knicks' 6th straight loss. And as we mentioned earlier, New Rochelle High School won their 3rd Class AA state title, 28-0 win over at McQuaid Jesuit in the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. Tonight, all the hockey locals are in action. Vegas is at Madison Square Garden. The Islanders are in Detroit. The Devils in Buffalo. The Knicks are in Milwaukee. And a good Monday night football game tonight, Minnesota at Seattle. And I am Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Thank you very much, Chris. And the top of the hour is brought to you by the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Plug in virtual reality, aging issues management, and the law firm of Pena and Khan. But now, if this computer will do what it's supposed to do, That is a sign that it's time for Jake's Picks of the Week. This week's football picks brought to you by, actually today we get the results for his Thanksgiving picks. We'll also talk with him about what happened over the weekend in the National Football League. Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont, open 7 days. And we go to Jake himself. Jake's Picks, how'd you do on Thanksgiving? Are you thankful?
Bob.
Or are you just going to give us stuffing?
No, it was a fun Thanksgiving. Went 2-1. The Bears were my lone thorn. The Bears won 24-20. They were favored by 3.5. I lost by half a point on that.
Yeah, the agony.
Those half points will kill you.
Those half points will kill you every time.
Other than that, the Buffalo Bills came through 26-15 against Dallas. They were 7-point underdogs, but they ended up winning by 11. And New Orleans 26, Atlanta 18. I picked the Saints. They were favored by 7. They won by 8.
Okay, so now what is your record right now?
16-10-1 on the year, which is quite remarkable.
Now, have you theoretically what we need to add come the new year? Okay, 16-10-1.
Bob, I'd like to remind you that you like Dallas and Atlanta on Thanksgiving Day.
I did, and did I win?
No.
No and no.
I lost both games?
You did.
Did I bet any money?
I don't remember.
No, I don't. Okay. Now, I got a question. See, that's the point. What I think we need to do for the new year, let's get people psyched up for the new year in a month. What we need to do is put a dollar amount, even if you don't actually bet it, okay, a dollar amount to your picks so that 16-10-1, and he's up $1,452.21.
Well, what I'd like to do, my big idea is we've got this wheel over here that
the Wheel of Fortune.
And I say we put an NFL team on every section of it.
Go ahead.
And then I will make my picks, and then we'll go to the wheel.
Ooh, Jake versus the wheel. I like it.
The wheel versus me. I think the wheel has a chance. We'll do that every week from here on forward. Okay. Bob is showing the wheel. So we're gonna have to put an NFL team on every section of the wheel.
As you can see, I work with a big wheel here.
And you know what else I've been trying to do, Bob, is
go ahead.
I've been in touch with a couple Sears in the Westchester area.
Sears,
fortune
the
tellers.
store of fortune tellers.
Swamis, gypsies.
Yeah, not Sears that you buy TV from.
What's wrong with both of you?
But
what do you guys drink over the holiday? What?
I've called 2 to get them to come on and pick against me because, they're Sears.
Okay, pick a number.
17.
Pick a number.
2.
10.
Dear God, look what I've started.
You picked 7?
Yes, I did.
Oh, boy. See how hot he is, folks? He's hotter than a pistol. Oh, my goodness.
By the way, we're available to rent this room out. If you want to turn half of it into a casino, we're already halfway there.
That's all I need to be in here. The feds will be in here.
Next up, a craps table.
You know what's bad about being on TV? You can watch them do the perp walk as they take me out, like on the movie Wall Street. So tell us, what was it? Even though you didn't bet, we're going to do something we don't usually do. Before we get to Francesa picks or Francesa facts, what would you have bet this weekend? Because you're an honest guy. Mm-hmm.
I would have probably taken the Patriots last night. I think they were.
What happened?
Only 3-point favorites.
I finally watched it. I'm starting to get into football thanks to you. That onside kick, if he'd have used the other hand, they'd have gotten a touchdown. It'd have been great.
I was very surprised by that game.
What was the spread?
The Patriots were favored, I think, by 2. It was in Houston.
But how would you like to have bet Houston, and you were all sitting pretty, and then on that onside kick, do you think a few hearts pounded?
Oh, of course. Of course. But I'll pick tonight's game.
Okay, let's. Oh, wait. Okay, good. I need some music for tonight's game.
Let me see the wheel. Let me see if we can have the wheel picked.
Well, hold on, we're going to give you the wheel. You got me. Ow! Here, take this.
All right, let's see this.
This is coming to you live, not on film. By the way, do you know what that quote is from? So you're not a native New Yorker. Did you watch The Honeymooners when it was coming on? because
No,
it's
Bob,
one of the
I'm
great.
Not 60 yet.
Shut up, Chris. Go ahead.
I was going to defend you. I said I like the honeymooners.
Yeah, so even my grandson loves the honeymooners. No, it's because there's a famous episode which we'll talk about later where. Anyway, so all right. So wait. I got to do this right.
Well, I'm going to set up the wheel thing for tonight. Tonight's game is the Vikings in Seattle. Seattle's a 3-point favorite. And on this wheel, there are 24 numbers. So who should be odd and who should be even?
Give me the game teams again.
All right, Seattle is odd. The Vikings are even.
Seattle is an odd place if you've ever been there, let me tell you. Go ahead. All right, you want me to spin it?
Yeah, you spin the wheel.
I'll spin it. All
right, so Seattle is odds and the Vikings are evens.
Chris, you got to look over my shoulder at the TV monitor. Can they see it?
They can see it, but not you, so it's perfect.
It is an even number.
All right, so what does that mean?
The wheel picked the Vikings, which is great because I picked Seattle.
Okay.
There you go. Our first.
So it's
our
Seattle.
First
What's the
head-to-head
spread?
matchup, 3. Seattle's favored by 3.
See, now you abdicated to the wheel. All right, Jake's picks of the week.
Can we call it Jake's wheel?
Jake's wheel. Jake's a big wheel. This week's football picks brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrons, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont. And guess what else it's time for?
Not yet.
No? You didn't come up.
I told you these facts are hard to come by.
Okay, well, I'm gonna. You had such a good idea that poor Chris. You know what he was. We talked over the weekend, Jake and I, and Jake's come up with this bit we're going to be doing called Bob's Beefs.
Yes.
Well, I started out this morning.
The 6 o'clock hour was essentially Bob's beef.
I couldn't
until
stop.
the first guest came.
You already take the ones that you already talked about that I spent hours writing.
No, but not all those. But there was just so many. There's always something that goes on, or even right here, that I'm not going to start about the men's room at work. But boy, oh boy, by the end of the
train station men's room, that's a low bar.
At best, it's a buy room.
And the Farrah faucet doesn't work either. The faucet doesn't work. I can't even wash my hands. But that for another day. All righty. It is 8:10. So when are we going to get to Francesca's stuff? It's your time. You're on the air because we care.
Bob, I haven't done a Francesca fact of the day in a week or so. Kind of gotten over it, but I'll see what I can dig up for you.
Okay, well, thank you. Dig it up as soon as you can. By the way, you if you're not a Honeymooners fan, you may notice a lot of quotes from that. You know what I'm going to have to do? I'm going to have to give them the disc, and you have to get caught up on it. Because here in New York, particularly...
Overnights?
Pardon?
Channel 11?
No, but you can, but there were 39 episodes that are absolutely super famous, and we got a call coming in, and I missed it. But let me see.
I have to say the nicest compliment I got over the holiday break was my mother-in-law said I have a fantastic radio voice, so I'm working on that.
Your mother-in-law said, you're working on your verbal fry. You know what that is?
Radio voice.
Do you know what verbal
Sounds good,
fry
right?
is? No, but that's it. Women do that more than men. It's supposed to affect gravitas. It's where you let it sound like this. And that's why if you listen on some of the news stations, a lot of women broadcasters are now trained to do that. So they go, particularly like on NPR and stations like that, they're all into verbal fry to sound more official. Anyway, that's what it's called.
Yes.
No, you don't have to. No, let the whole voice come out. See, the whole thing is it took years where it actually is coming out of your chest.
I took up cigarettes.
No, you did not.
That's my New Year's resolution. Start smoking
Finally,
cigarettes.
someone's thinking around here.
I missed it again. Yeah, I did miss it again. All right, call again. I'm busy here. Who did I miss again? Call. Answer the... He's killing me. Anthony does these things where he'll send me a text in the middle of the interview, and then people have to see me smirk. Good morning, Anthony, and thank you very much for calling.
The reason I'm trying to get in, if you remember last week when Jake said he was taking a week off,
yeah,
I said Jake was a true bettor, and someone there said, no, true bettors double down.
Yeah.
Now, the reason Jake took last week off, because I guarantee you, had he not, his lock of the week would have been the Jets.
Jake, answer the charge.
You're probably right. Didn't even really look into the games on Sunday that much, but you're probably right.
Anthony, do you realize what you did to me earlier today?
You deserved it.
No, but when you sent in the flying spaghetti monster, I'm not looking at the phone anymore. I even got a nice little perch for it here, so I could keep track of texts. I got this. Very well done. You'll get me just like the county executive mentioned something that he didn't agree with. He sent me. He pivoted with the tongue hanging out of the little face. You're gonna kill me. You're gonna kill me. But it is. Thank you anyway.
It is what it is, Bob. He couldn't justify why he didn't give the position of county executive a raise, which he admitted has not been raised since the Spano administration.
Well, actually, and it's crazy to have the sub guy, the number two, make more than the top dog.
But even that, Bob, his justification for the raises in general was that we would not, as a county, be able to get the best of the best to fill the positions. So then, whether he serves 4 or 8 years is immaterial at this point, okay? Because if he doesn't raise the position of county executive, how can we expect to get the best of the best to replace him?
I understand. You made sense. By the way, you sound really good. How's your back?
The back is not the issue at this point.
Okay.
The back will always be the back. The neck is now the issue.
Right. Well, that's what I meant, the neck. Jeez. My brother has a problem with his neck, and he doesn't want to get the surgery because it's only 50-50. So
I'll be talking Thursday to a surgeon to see what my options are.
All right. Well, our prayers and thoughts are with you. We want you to be well. Who else is going to make me laugh in the middle of a serious interview?
It is what it is. I'll find a way to roll with the punches. Don't worry about it.
You always do. Hey, I wanted to ask you about something, a conversation that you've had with us over the years regarding snowflakes. I couldn't make up my mind if the people out, I don't know if you read the story in the Post over the weekend, but what was I think it was the Post.
Me read the Post?
Of course. Amazon.com. What's going on out in Staten Island. Do you think that's snowflake stuff, or do you think they're really running a Stalag 17 out there?
Bob, when people are replaced by machines, what kind of feelings do you think are going to be issued towards the machines or towards the company that's replacing them?
Well said. Well said. I don't know, Chris. You heard us do that story today, and I don't know if you did, Jake, but the people working in Amazon out in Staten Island are saying they're treated horribly. And in fact, you get fired if you get in the way of at least according to them, if to be believed, they get fired if they get bumped into by a robot. Sounds like it could be fun if the robot's hot.
You ever been to Stop and Shop lately?
Yeah.
You see that robot going around?
Yeah, jeez.
That's what it's coming to, partner.
I thought
McDonald's kiosks. It is what it is.
I thought
the wave of the future.
Actually, I thought the robot had nice-looking wheels. All right, I guess it's time to go.
That's only because you're short enough to see him.
Anthony, thank you very much. Stay strong and stay in touch. He's so brave.
I actually don't mind the kiosk at McDonald's.
No, but he's got, what's that?
I don't mind the kiosk at McDonald's.
Well, do you know, and I'm going to make an age-inappropriate joke, but at least it's at my own expense. I had never been in a drive-thru till I was nearly 50. And I was working with someone at Merrill at the time, and they said we were on the road, and they said, "Come on, let's get a bite." And I said, "Well, I don't know McDonald's and all that stuff. I don't want to go to them." No, we're going to forget where it was. So I said, "All right." So we're going to the drive-thru. I said, "Never been in a drive-thru." To make a long story short, do you know I gave my order to the phone booth?
No.
Yeah, I had no. You've got to think that you've never been in a drive-thru before, and you see the sign, and right next to you is a phone. So I thought maybe there was like some device in there.
You were 50? So this
47, actually.
The Nixon administration?
By the way,
97.
One thing about the McDonald's kiosks, someone did a study.
Yeah.
Some group did a study on how many of the kiosks, what percentage, have fecal matter on them.
Why?
Because they wanted to see how dirty they were. And you know what the number was?
Wow.
100%.
Wait. But why does the kiosk got that?
Because people don't wash their hands coming out of the bathroom. And knowing this, I still use the kiosk because I am not going to wait online like a sucker.
Okay, so that means when I go to like a Wawa, and my grandson makes fun of me all the time. We ever go into Wawa?
Love Wawa.
I don't know how to order a sandwich on that stupid machine, but you're telling me that's probably got feces too.
Probably, possibly.
But
The other big one is shopping carts. By the way, that's the other big one that has stuff you don't want on your hands, getting on your hands.
Well, you know, when you and I have worked at several radio stations, and I always wonder where the board's been, because you got people touching that board 24 hours a day, 24.
No, I've seen people. Not me, but I've seen other people use the board. They'll use their knuckles to hit the buttons because they will not press the button if they can help it with their index finger.
Well, I've sprayed, just spray a little disinfectant on it. I mean, it's 5 o'clock in the morning before I go live, and then that's what I do. This board right now is only on my fingers and yours, really, so far. It loves me, don't you, board? You love me. Yes, you need me. I'm sorry. I get attached to my electronics.
We'll be shutting down a little early today to get Bob some fresh air.
Where's all this snow and rain? Do you know, we have this issue when there's bad weather. And again, we're trained in radio and broadcasting and news. Weather does trump everything because it affects everybody. But I think we have this problem where we overdo it. And it's coming here. It's going to be Armageddon. You'll be sliding down the highway. When she comes, you'll be... No.
Light rain and 45 degrees. That forecast doesn't have people diving for their radios and computers to get the latest forecast.
No, it doesn't.
But snow, 6 inches of snow, as is projected upstate. That'll get you listening.
See, you guys are too young to remember, but if you go back to the 60s, and I'm not making it up, the snowstorms were much bigger. They were much like you would. I remember walking in the area in Brooklyn where I lived. 9th Street was like this main thoroughfare, although all 5th Avenue was, and I was like on 24th. And that's my next guest, and I know it's the mayor himself, so we'll be with the mayor in a second. But we actually did the snow. We'll be right with you, Mayor. The snow that was maybe 2 feet packed outside where the cars park. You would actually take that and you would walk as a kid. It'd be kind of cool. Now you don't have that anymore.
Nope.
But what we do have is our next guest, gentlemen. And without further ado, he's with us. We're on a different schedule with the mayor now. Probably once a month is going to work for us. But he's a very fine mayor of New Rochelle, now heading into another term. And I guess you don't have to be re-inaugurated on January 1st. But please welcome the mayor of New Rochelle, Noam Bramson. Good morning, Mayor. Happy Thanksgiving.
Well, thank you. Happy Thanksgiving to you and your listeners. Bob, it's good to be with you.
It's always good to have you, Mayor. Mayor, I know that you have a city manager, but you get involved in this stuff. We didn't get hit with the snow or rain we thought we might get yesterday. But any special plans for today, or are you guys keeping your eye on it?
Well, we're keeping our eye on the weather. It looks like today may be a little bit more challenging in southern Westchester than yesterday, but our public works crews are fully spun up and ready to roll. This is the first big storm of the season, but I think we'll be ready for it.
Well, I think so, too. And I think back over the years, and I was asking George Latimer about this earlier today. I don't know if you were listening. When the weather gets like this, well, not so much now, but let's say we had 2 feet of snow on the ground already. Do you and Chuck, do you guys have to be up all night waiting for phone calls, or do you go into City Hall to wait it out? How do you manage this? What's it like?
It really depends on the nature of the storm, on the timing of the storm, on the anticipated weather after the storm. So all of those factors contribute to how much of an emergency it is. If we have a case in which a storm has been unexpectedly bad, it's coincided with the rush hour, we have traffic that's blocked up. You may remember, was it a year or two ago, that the region received a really devastating storm in the middle of an afternoon rush,
yes.
And you had school buses that could not get through, parents who were deeply concerned about the welfare of their youngsters, people who had to sort of take what would ordinarily be a 20-minute commute, and it strung into 3 or 4 hours. So in a case like that, it's really all hands on deck, and including the elected officials who want to be available to take comments, to interface with staff, to make sure that resources are being deployed in the most efficient way possible. In a more routine storm, there's not much of a role for a mayor or a city council member. to worry. And it's kind of a funny thing. The city manager and I have an interesting relationship on this front. Usually, in most things, I'm the optimist and he's the pessimist. I always feel like, well, this is something we can get done, and Chuck will be a little bit more skeptical and say, well, here are all the obstacles. When it comes to weather, I'm the pessimist and he's the optimist. I'm always checking in with him prior to a storm to make sure our equipment is mobilized, to make sure we're ready for it, to sort of try to anticipate worst-case scenarios. And Chuck's attitude is usually like, don't worry about it, things will usually work out. It's just a kind of funny role reversal that we've gotten used to. And sometimes I'm right, sometimes he's right, but regardless, our professional staff takes all of these events very, very seriously. And there is another role I should point out for the elected officials, and that's to make sure the DPW is properly resourced. So over the last few years, we've modernized and expanded the DPW fleet. We've introduced GPS systems in the various trucks to help make our routes more efficient. We installed a new salt dome, which improves the quality of the salt that we can spread on the streets. So we've taken a variety of steps that are aimed at making sure our snow removal operations are more effective and more efficient. And I think that has made a sort of a gradual, steady improvement in the quality of our performance.
Well, certainly, I remember, I guess it was 5 years ago, the major hurricane we had where the power was out and trees were down. You were, with my other radio station, you were on with us regularly. I don't think you slept, or Chuck, I don't think you two slept for a couple of days.
Yeah, those kinds of major events where we have folks without power for an extended period of time, that, again, is another kind of all-hands-on-deck situation. We will open our emergency operations center. We will be in regular touch with Con Ed. The city manager and I, either together or independently, will often be roving around the city to sort of determine where there are problems and make sure that the folks in charge of repairs are sort of fully cognizant of the locations that need attention. We will participate in 2 or 3 times a day briefing calls from the utility companies, and that's in addition to fielding calls and emails from residents. So, those episodes, which fortunately don't occur all that often.
Thank goodness.
I feel like it's like once every 2 years or so we have something like this.
You always get a reminder, 8:25, we're talking with the mayor of New Rochelle, Noam Bramson. In fact, if I remember correctly in my aging memory, Mr. Mayor, there was you had set up a couple of emergency centers for people that needed. I couldn't remember if it was water or what it was, but
it was
you were
actually dry ice.
That's why you were actually at one of them in the booth giving out dry ice.
I've done that, and sometimes also when you're in a leadership position in the middle of one of these crises, you just have a lot of nervous energy, and you feel like you need to be sort of present and engaged. And sometimes there isn't anything productive for you to do. Frankly, it's best to just sit back and let the professionals do their work. But you still feel as though somehow the role imposes a responsibility to be visible and be accessible and sort of maximize the distribution of information for people who need it. So I do my best to engage constructively without getting in the way.
Well, Mayor,
and that's always the balance.
One of the things that, being in the media, we do actually look forward, and the public that's when they want to hear from you. Half the other time, the mayor does what he does, but they do want to hear from you during a crisis, and they look for that leadership. So that's an important thing. Moving on to other stuff, the wonderful development continues. Things are looking well. One sidetrack to it has been the development of the new budget. There's concern about this outflow of water tax. I don't know what to call it, a fee or whatever. We're getting concerns about that. We talked to a couple of the councilmen about that last week. Now, during the budget review, what are your concerns?
Well, I think on balance, it is a reasonable budget. It continues our investment in capital and infrastructure needs, which has been, I think, vital to New Rochelle's future. The proposed tax rate is within the tax cap, and I think there's a good chance that the City Council will reduce that rate prior to adoption of the final budget. Although that we still have to get into the specifics. We're continuing our modest expansion of public safety services, which is important as the community grows. We have made significant investments in our sanitary systems over the years, some of it related to development, some of it related just to the fact that we have sort of an aging sewer system that needs upgrades, and all of which contributes to water quality in Long Island Sound. So the fee that the city manager proposed is, in his estimation, a sort of equitable and common means of funding those improvements. And I think it needs to be evaluated in the context of the budget as a whole.
Do we know how much that would be if it stays as it is? How much it would be to the individual homeowner or business?
I need to consult my budget to get the exact number, but my recollection is it's in the order of $60 a year.
Yeah,
something like that.
It's a number I heard.
But I just don't have the precise number at my fingertips.
Looking ahead to 2020, again, our guest Mayor Noam Bramson, City of New Rochelle. Looking ahead now to another 4 years. What do you see as the next stage? Of course, you can't predict the future. You can't predict the economy or how giving the banks will be with funding. But what do you see as the next stage? We have now more apartments and such. I guess we're looking towards Echo Bay development. But what do you see as the next stage? What's your vision?
Well, I think you just said it. Echo Bay is the next sort of front in our effort to positively redevelop New Rochelle. We have a chance. It's not a new chance, but we're closer to realizing it than we ever have been before, to open up our waterfront for public access and enjoyment. And along Echo Bay, that's an opportunity that the public has been denied for a century or more. And to create continuous public access to the Long Island Sound shore, I think, will be a wonderful benefit, not just for the immediately surrounding area and not just for the downtown, but indeed for our entire city and region. So that's an exciting possibility, which again we're closer than ever to achieving. And as we continue to redevelop the downtown, we want to make sure that the prosperity we attract is equitable and inclusive. We want to make sure we're getting the balance right with respect to affordable housing, that we're doing everything possible to promote job opportunities, that from a planning perspective, we have the public facilities that are necessary to accommodate growth, whether it's in enhanced open spaces or adequate parking, as well as transportation alternatives. So it's the challenge of managing growth wisely so that the benefits are shared and distributed as fairly as possible. That's a great problem to have. It's a great challenge to have. But it's a meaningful one, and it's one that I think the entire city council, including its new members, will be engaged in fully.
Something that was in the paper the other day. I'm not sure I know why it came up when it did, but it always intrigues me. So indulge me, if you will. David's Island. Now you have from time to time come forward with proposals and hopes and ambitions. Do you ever see us resolving this? And of course, that's a crystal ball question.
I do. I know what you're getting at here, and I do. And look, we did a really great report a few years ago, which sort of analyzed a variety of reuse options, and that still serves as the basis for the city's plans for David's Island. The reason that we haven't focused on it in the last few years is just, frankly, our dance card has been full. Between the enormous amount of work and attention that's been devoted to the downtown, and now to Echo Bay. A city of our size just doesn't have the bandwidth to focus on a whole other development area with all the challenges and conversation that revolve around it. But I do think that as plans for the downtown and Echo Bay reach a sort of sufficient level of maturity, as those challenges begin to sort of manage themselves because the process has reached a certain point, then I think we will be able to turn our attention to David's Island, and that could come within the next term. It's not going to come in 2020, but within the next 4 years, I think it's reasonable to think that we'll be able to take a harder and closer and more serious look at the future of David's Island.
Thanks for that. It's always intrigued me, and every time not you, but the city itself has offered tours for the press to go out there, I've always been tied up with something. I'd love to see that one day.
I hope you'll have the opportunity. It's really a remarkable place. It is, the largest island of its kind in western Long Island Sound, with close proximity to New York City. It's the kind of place that really gets everyone dreaming. Which is part of the reason why There have been some big fights over David Island in the past.
Yeah, I've read some of them. Yeah, Mayor.
Those dreams can be mutually incompatible.
And plus the history.
But I think we have a chance to do something special there, and we don't want to treat it like any old development site.
No, that makes total sense. And again, there's history there. I know it goes back to the Civil War. Prisoners of war were there. Just a fascinating place. Okay, looking forward, as we go into 2020, what do you want to shout out about? What are you looking forward to? What do you want the public to know?
Well, if you don't mind, I want to do a shout out not about 2020,
Sure.
but about what just happened over the weekend.
Oh, of course.
And that's congratulations to the Huguenots, the New Rochelle High School football team, which just won the New York State Championship, 28-0 in Syracuse. Remarkable performance, capped a season in which they went 13-0. And the kids did so under circumstances that we all understand were unusual and difficult, and it's just a remarkable demonstration of character, both on and off the field. And so I'm really proud of our team. I'm really proud of their classmates, and I didn't want to conclude this interview without saying a word about the happy news from the weekend.
Well, we actually, of course, we always have to do weather first, but that was our top story today, too. I hate to wax developmental about children, but, winning under difficult circumstances and after you've gone through trials is such a great life lesson for them as well.
It is, and can I say something?
Sure.
If they had lost with grace, we would have been just as proud.
Absolutely.
It's not just the win, although we're all happy that they won. It's the fact that they were able to play with such determination and a spirit of teamwork. That more than the score is what makes us so proud.
Hey, Mayor, while I have you, I still not over the time you once sketched, the mayor and I were doing a program together, folks, and during a break, he sketched the map of the United States, and it was 2 inches wide and a half inch, and it was accurate. And then someone had called in and said, "Oh yeah, you think that's something? Make him shaded for the states that won Democrat and Republican." Looking forward, and I'm talking to you now, not so much as the mayor, but as a political wonk and expert. How do you see things shaping out in 2020 on the national election?
So it's tough for me to be an analyst. A dispassionate analyst when I feel very strongly about what I want the outcome to be.
Okay.
I think President Trump has been a disaster for America and a disaster for the world, and is a constant source of both embarrassment and fear to me and to many others who share my values and my hopes for this country. So I very much hope that in November 2020 we'll elect a new president, and I think we probably will. If you look at the president's approval ratings, they've been consistently stuck in the low 40s and high 30s. That's not a good mark for someone in the White House. And Democrats are clearly highly motivated, but I'm not prepared to conclude that Trump is a sure loser.
Yeah.
We all sort of thought so in 2016, and he prevailed, and the Electoral College is skewed in such a way that the president can lose the popular vote by a significant margin, as he did in 2016, and still win. So I'm cautiously optimistic about how things are going to go in 2020.
Well, hence my comment about the day that you shaded those states. If we can just talk about that just a little bit. The states that he, if you will, for a change to happen, that he needs to lose, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and others. What does it take for the Democrats to take those states back?
Well, it takes shifting traditional Republican voters, typically in the suburbs, towards the Democratic Party, and that trend has been underway for quite a while and has really accelerated in the Trump era. And it means holding on to traditional Democratic voters in rural areas who have drifted in the other direction. And how those two trends balance out will really determine how key swing states will go. It's also important to remember, and I'm not saying anything here that's an original observation. I mean, lots of people are talking about this, that even as states like Michigan and Wisconsin and Minnesota become a little more challenging for Democrats, there are also new opportunities in states like Georgia and Arizona and North Carolina, which are trending in the other direction. So I think it's a little early to be sure what the tipping point state will be in 2020. It may be the same ones as last time, or it may not. I think we'll have to see how things play out.
Well, Florida is always an interesting state, and I guess it went Republican last time. Any chance for the Democrats to win that this time?
Oh, sure. I mean, Florida has, in the last few cycles, featured one very tight race after another. Now, Republicans have come out on top in all those tight races, but usually it's been like between 1% and 3%. So it's very, very close. And I think Florida will certainly be among the states that both candidates will have to compete for hard.
Thanks for that. I like talking politics with you. Don't get a chance to do it as much as I once did. Mayor Noam Bramson, anything you want to shout out about before we send you on your way, sir?
No, but I appreciate the fact that we have an opportunity to talk together. And in the event that we don't speak again before then, I want to wish you and your listeners a very Merry Christmas, a Happy Hanukkah, and a joyful New Year.
Well, same to you, Mayor. I'm sure I'll see you by then. I usually have to go to City Hall to pay a ticket here and there. Thank you so much. Mayor Noam Bramson, everybody. Boy, what a sad truth that is. In fact, I got one here. Jake, I don't know about you or you, Chris. I got one in the garage here, but the one I couldn't pay or fix because, the machines wouldn't work. So I got to go to City Hall and throw myself on the mercy of the court, as it were. Is it 8:39? And we had another guest scheduled to come. There's going to be a surprise guest, but the weather has precluded that. So we look straight ahead. Our next guest will be Tom Abenante at 8:50. But we will open the telephones at 914-222-3141, 222. I love that. 22. It's the. Do you know what I didn't realize, Chris, that we didn't take advantage of?
What's that?
Oops, sorry. The fact that here we are at the train station and part of our phone is 222. 3140. Yeah.
Yeah, how did that skip our minds?
No, what?
How did that skip our minds?
I have no idea. Do you know, I got in a big debate with a lot of people a couple of years ago, particularly my grandchildren. They never heard the Choo Choo Charlie commercial. Do you remember it?
Yes, vaguely.
Well, I need something.
Choo Choo Charlie was the name.
Choo Choo Charlie was an engineer.
This is like old-time radio from the 30s.
Choo Choo Charlie was an engineer. Choo Choo Charlie was his friend we hear. Choo Choo Charlie was an engineer. Don't know any other candy that I love so well. Go ahead. Charlie says.
Love my good and plenty.
Charlie says.
Really rings a bell.
Charlie says.
Love my good and plenty.
Don't know any other candy that I love so well.
We were supposed to do that. I haven't heard that song in, I don't know.
Do you remember
Alki
Alka-Seltzer?
No, I don't remember that.
No, none of that, do you? You see, you've got to get with it, pal. Well, all right, we have to do. We need music to do this because I like music for the weather now. Oh, and let it snow, let it snow. I can only say like a second. I can sing a song. I think I just can't play it. I forget what the rules.
We should hire a crooner to come in and sing.
I can croon.
Oh, can you?
Strangers in the night. Okay, let's go. You're on the air because we care. Tell people about the weather if you dare. See, I could do rap too.
34 degrees here in New Rochelle. It will be cloudy, overcast, windy most of the day, a mix of rain and snow, most likely in the afternoon, highs in the low 40s. North of 287 today, a winter storm warning is in effect. That is through tomorrow morning. South of 287, just a winter weather advisory tonight. Snow at times will taper off after midnight. Possible 1 to 2 inches here along the Sound Shore. Further north as you go, 3 to 6 inches, especially again as you hit north of 287. Tomorrow, sunny, 39 degrees. Wednesday and Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds. Both days high around 40. Weather brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. It's voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
And now we'll get Chris Conway's take on the sports. What happened last night in the sports world? What's due tonight, Chris Conway?
In the sports world, a disappointing day for the NFL locals.
Disappointing?
0-11 Bengals are
0-11.
Winless no more. They defeated the Jets 22-6. If you are an NFL team and have not won a game yet, you want to see the Jets coming into your building. It's the first time in NFL history The team has lost twice in one season to two different winless teams that were at least 0-7 at the time. Green Bay defeated the Giants 31-13 in the snowy Meadowlands. Giants are now 2-10, the second worst record in the NFL. It is the first time in Giants history that they did not win a game in October or November. NBA, Miami 109, Brooklyn 106. Boston 113, Knicks 104. That is the Knicks' sixth straight loss. New Rochelle High School, as you've heard throughout the day here, won 28-0. They won their third championship in Class AA over McCade Jesuit in the Carrier Dome in Syracuse. Tonight, all the hockey locals are in action. The Vegas Golden Knights are in Madison Square Garden to take on the Rangers. The Islanders are in last place Detroit. New Jersey in Buffalo. The Knicks are in Milwaukee, and Monday Night Football, Minnesota is at Seattle. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Thank you very much, Chris. And the bottom of the hour programs are brought with an arm. Brought to you by Plug-in Virtual Reality, the law firm of Pena & Con, Aging Issues Management, and United Hebrew of New Rochelle, top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. And Jake, are you ready with your Francesa facts of the week? Because we need to do that. And let me see what we have. Oh, you want to start this? All right.
No, you can read it through.
Oh, no. But first, let's find out, Jake, your Francesa fact of the day. And one of the reasons we do this, folks, is, as you know, Mr. Francesa has announced that he's retiring, I guess, at the end of the year. Is that correct? Do you know?
End of the month.
End of the month?
Same thing.
Well, same thing. Yeah, I didn't reconcile the two in my little brain. Okay, his Francesa fact of the day.
In 2012, Mike Francesa was ranked number 1 of the 100 most important sports talk radio hosts in America by Talkers Magazine.
By Talkers Magazine. I used to go to their conference every year for years.
What was your highest ranking in Talkers?
1,752. No, they only did the national guys. But the problem with that is it became a cult. Oh, the same people go every year. Same thing. And this guy that runs it, who's a really good radio guy, but naturally he's got to cater to, these big businesses and the same people every year. Wow. I spend looking, wow. And it used to be called the New Media Seminar, and he was ahead of the curve. And then, like a lot of people are ahead of the curve, he fell behind the curve. And every year you go to same damn thing, same. And the vendors got smaller and smaller, and it's not what it used to be. And I say that. And we give a Freedom of Speech Award, and it would always be given to some famous guy. Whereas I actually thought, and as much as, people listening to this who knew that I worked at another radio station, they'd be surprised to hear this, because you don't always see eye to eye with your boss. Guy should have got the Freedom of Speech Award was the guy that owned my last radio station, Bill O'Shaughnessy, to be absolutely fair, because of his commitment to what he did. And that's a guy who should have gotten that award. But then you give it to the Michael Savages who don't show up, Dr. Laura, who shows up and takes 87 bouts. Although they did give it one year to, Bob Grant, which spoke his mind. But then another year they gave it to someone I absolutely adore, but they gave it to Howard Stern's sidekick, who wonderful broadcaster, great one, Robin Quivers. But she had nothing to do with freedom of speech. The points of view weren't hers. So it kind of got like that. So I would have liked to see them do a little better. So Talkers doesn't have a lot of credibility with me anymore. Although it's a good syndicator of information about what we do. But I guess that's how I feel about that. So I noticed that you've given me Bob's Beef.
Beefs.
Okay, beefs. It's the holiday season, and for most, it's active. It's a time of peace and cheer, but for me, it's mostly agitation. It is agitation. You got this right. So I thought I'd get some things off my chest and vent a little bit. Okay, let me just start first. Okay, why did you get me off on this?
Well, I figured you'd want to read it first and then
okay.
make it your own.
No, I like it. See, he's helping me. He's putting bits together. Icicles. What good can come from an icicle or a whole row of icicles? You ever get hit in the head with an icicle? Yeah, I have. There's still one sticking in Chris's head. I've never heard of one person say, gee, those are some beautiful icicles. Oh, I have. No, icicles can be nice. icicles.
To look at, not when you're standing under them.
No, but they're actually very pretty. If you know what I like? When the ice is all wrapped around a tree and it makes the tree look like it's wrapped in glass. Now, let me tell you what I hate about the holidays. Let me tell you what I hate about. They say you mentioned it. The expectations that we put on people. Now, for people with kids, I get it. You just got to do it. And when my daughter was young and my grandkids were younger, you know what they want. You shop, and it's insane. It's insane because now. It's easier for me now because you don't have that list of this doll, this toy, this thing. Then you're driving all over all these different stores to get the best buy. But 1 year, and I promised myself this, haven't done it yet. 1 year I want to spend, probably after I retire, the time between Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's in a cabin someplace, all by myself with a book and a good bottle of bourbon, because it's just too much. It's just too damn much. And you run around and you shop and you pick. If you're not busy, it can be a lot of fun to go out Christmas shopping. But when you're busy, I handled it better when I was young. And I was never a big drinker, but still what I used to do when I was like in my early 20s, I would go out with the guys after work, get a nice little buzz on, and then do my Christmas shopping Christmas Eve. But I was a methodical. Let's say the 5 women in the family, I like that. Give me 5. Of the same age. I like that. But I always shop for my other half or my daughter or my mom very carefully. Very carefully for them. But that's... So anyway, we'll get started more on that. But that's a great idea, Jake. And you got me so rattled this morning just thinking about it. I went off half-cocked. So you're going to really like this idea of yours. What made you come up with this?
You like to whine and complain a lot, Bob.
I'd say ornery would be a good word.
Ornery? You miserable... You miserable creeps, both of you. How dare you call me ornery? It's one of my favorite Odd Couple episodes when Oscar tells Felix... he talks about Felix on a TV show and he gets laughs. So Felix says to him when he gets home, "You made me out to be an erotic madman and I'm going to kill you for that." Well, like there was this guy, how do I put this and be politically correct, but it's true. We had a guy at Merrill who was a runner, who was himself addled. We'll leave it at that. God bless him. But when I first started on Wall Street, the communists and the capitalists and the right wing and left wing used to go down by Federal Hall and argue. It was very interesting. It was like they moved, and they also moved later to Washington Square Park in the Village. But he would go and he would yell at them and he would be saying, "You're crazy." He'd be telling them they're crazy. Anyway, it's kind of like, finger was pointing in the wrong direction. All right, it's 8:50, 914-222-3141, 914-222-3141. Chris, we don't have any update on the weather, do we? It's still 34 degrees. And what is that? What am I looking at?
Oh, the hockey, the minor league hockey, the teddy bear toss.
Oh, that's down in Hershey. Have you ever been there?
No.
Okay, folks. If you have children especially, you can make a kill. I should make them advertise what I'm going to tell you. They have a winter wonderland in Hershey, Pennsylvania, where they have the Hershey Park, the rides and everything. They make it into but they also have one of the most successful minor league sports franchises in the history of sports, called the Hershey Bears. And do you know why they're called the Bears? Let's see if either one of you can figure it out, sports fans. Think. Hershey, Pennsylvania, they make chocolate. What do you think the original name of the team was, and it evolved? Tick, tick, tick.
Don't know. You lost me.
Bars.
Hershey Bars?
Hershey Bars. And then it became the Bears. And you know how the team came about? Because you say to yourself, gee, Hershey's a relatively small town, although it's 20 minutes from Harrisburg. This guy, Milton Hershey, who built that city and built a chocolate factory, he really actually cared. One of these rare beings who cares about the populace. When the Depression hit, he said, what can I do to keep people working? So he took his money. In addition to building, he was an orphan. He built a wonderful orphanage. He built the Hershey Park Arena, which was the world's first concrete structure without beams. And it's still there. He did not, and say, now that I built it, what am I going to put there? So he put an American Hockey League team there, which isn't like all low-level minors. It's high minors. It's the next best league in the world. And he did that. just to employ the city. And they played games there maybe like 10 years ago when he built a new arena, but he kept Hershey Park Arena because it's still part of like in the park itself. And they have not minor league games, high school games there, college games. But they did not do away with the arena. It's just too beautiful and it's too historic.
Wasn't that arena where Will Chamberlain?
Yes, it's where he got the 100 points.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those places where Chicago Stadium was like that. If you like sports, basketball or hockey, particularly because those kinds of arenas, Chicago Stadium, the old Garden, the old Boston Garden. But it had the kind of seats that went almost straight up.
Yeah.
I mean, it went out but up, and you were always close to the action, but it had the old-fashioned scoreboard, and it was just a great place to watch hockey. And you go to that town, and you realize it's a cute little town, and they have the candy kisses, which you would bite, but it's a street light. You get an electrocution. And yet it would draw 7,000 people every night, 8,000 people, and the people loved the team. I still have my Hershey Bear jacket. I took my daughter to her first game in Hershey Park.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. And I always wanted to go to those, like, the one place I've not been, okay, I've been to Syracuse, Binghamton. I've never gotten to a game at Rochester. And Rochester is another iconic minor league town, the Rochester Americans. Yeah. It's interesting sports that way. Oh, all right. Anyway, so that's what Hershey Park, you get a chance to go there. I highly recommend it.
And then every year they have the teddy bear toss where...
Well, that's what started this.
A charity, they ask everyone to bring a teddy bear, and then when Hershey scores their first goal of the game, everyone tosses their teddy bear onto the ice. And I guess last night was a record-setting
How many
number
bears?
of teddy bears. I didn't see the number.
Well, you'll have to look that up. But yeah, they do all kinds of things. Hockey's got these weird things. In Detroit, do you know what? Okay, let's do this. This has nothing to do with the sport of hockey. It has to do with traditions. What's the big tradition in Detroit that involves a dead animal?
Are you talking about the octopus?
Right, got it. What's the tradition in Florida that involves a dead animal?
Oh, the rat.
The rats, yeah. The rat went across.
I remember the rat because, one of the Panthers killed a rat early in the season, just wiped it with a stick, and then Florida went on a big winning streak.
Yeah, and
they
then
made the finals that year unexpectedly, and everyone bought rats. In fact, I remember a story where
they throw out
some
rubber
company,
rats. They still do.
Yeah, they still do it. They can only do it after games now. They banned it throwing. They used to throw it after every goal. Like during that year, if you watch the playoffs, every time Florida scored, they would throw thousands of rats on the ice, and the game took 3 hours. But I remember there was one story where there was some company in Oklahoma that made rubber rats, and they couldn't figure out why. And in mid-June, every single order came from the Miami area.
Every single order,
every single rat they made was ordered by someone near Miami.
That sports teams do. What was it? You might know this, Jake, being our official baseball guy. What was the team where a line drive hit a bird and killed it, and everybody got upset? Or was it a bat?
I thought Dave Winfield killed a bird.
Yes,
he did. That's the one I thought too. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yes, he is. Our 9 o'clock guest came in looking like Winter Wonderland himself. The great Bob Cox is in. We'll be talking with him in about 6 minutes' time.
The look on Bob's face, by the way, when he walked in from that weather, is the look on most people's faces after dealing with Bob Marrone.
But no,
here.
but he's got the perfect sweater on. It's got snowflakes on it. He's got his Notre Dame hat. He's not ashamed to wear it.
The Norwegian sweater, Bob.
That's a Norwegian sweater?
And in Norway they have a saying.
What?
No bad weather, just the wrong clothes.
Oh, that is pretty good. No bad weather, just the long clothes. So we're going to be talking with Bob in just a few minutes. Although, Bob, if you sit down, we were just talking about something that you probably would appreciate, given your sports knowledge and Notre Dame fandom, et cetera, et cetera. Bob Cox, he's, of course, the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound. We do a lot of his stories now, and a lot of great work to you. But this is for more fun before we get into hard news in our break. We were talking about odd traditions in sports, like we brought up the octopus in Detroit for the Detroit Red Wings, the rats in Florida. Dave Winfield hit a bird. Was it Dave Winfield who hit the bird with a line drive? Yeah, I think
so.
Yeah. Anyway,
Randy Johnson threw a pitch and hit a bird.
Randy Johnson was the one pitcher.
And that became an ex-bird.
I played in the PGL, which was a good baseball league, and we had some great pitchers there. John Candelera. I was never afraid of the baseball, but I would have been afraid of that monster the big unit. It's 6'7" with the arm coming out here. What traditions you usually know? But does Notre Dame have a tradition like an Irish leprechaun comes out or something?
I wouldn't necessarily call it a tradition, but they have one thing they do, which is occasionally they wear green jerseys. And that's supposed to be a special significance that they shouldn't lose if they
wear the green.
And they very famously wore the green jerseys for the first time in a game against USC in a season they went on to win the national championship. So the green jerseys is a big deal for Notre Dame.
Okay, yeah, I love those kinds of things because you never know. What started us talking about that, and again, the people that taught me radio said, never mention the TV, you don't want to lose it, but it was a news item where out in Hershey, Pennsylvania, the Hershey Bears, they throw all the bears on the ice. It's kind of a cool thing. Now, if you weren't listening, we can do this, see if he can get it. The name Hershey Bears evolved from what name that made perfect sense at the time?
Gummy bears?
Well, no, Hershey bars.
Okay.
They're originally the Hershey bars, and then it evolved to the Hershey Bears, which is why if you look at the color of their uniforms, they're really burgundy, but they're supposed to be brown. They were brown for a long time, but they slowly burgundied out. Which brings me to the worst uniform is Colorado. All right, we're going to take a break, and then we'll be back with Bob Cox. He's the managing editor and the publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. And it's always a pleasure to have him. Plus, I think as you hear Bob week after week and the stories that he also calls in on, he's got many sides to him, not just investigative reporting and hard news. And we'll be talking with him in a few moments. But first, it is time for the weather and to acknowledge who'll be covering us in the bottom of the hour. And that means Chris Conway is with you. What's going on outside? And then we actually may get an update from Bob since he walked in with the weather.
That's right, the most up-to-date forecast you'll get. It is 35 degrees here along the Sound Shore. Today it'll be cloudy and windy, a mix of rain and snow, depending on how far north or south you are. Highs in the low 40s. North of 287, there is a winter storm warning through 7 a.m. tomorrow. Could be looking at 3 to 6 inches up there. South of 287, just a winter weather advisory. You'll see maybe some snow, maybe some mix. That will end tonight, a little after midnight, maybe 1 to 2 inches. Tomorrow, sunny, highs in the upper 30s. Wednesday and Thursday, mix of sun and clouds with the high around 40. Weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. It's voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Chris, thank you very much. And Bob Cox, if you will, before I go to the sponsors for the 9 o'clock hour, tell us what the weather was really like out there.
It's a cold, snowy, slushy, sleety kind of mess. You want to wear boots and something warm.
Boots and something warm. That brought to you by The Source since 2008.
Bob's weather is brought to you exclusively by...
by Talk of the Sound, consider The Source since 2008. And this hour, our long-form interview with Bob Cox is brought to you by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Plug in virtual reality, the law firm of Pena & Kahn, Aging Issues Management, their subsidiary Aging Issues Radio, and Dominic's Fine Cigars. They brought you Jake's Picks of the Week. He's doing pretty well. He's 16, I got it here, 16, 10, and 1. Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Notice I'm rolling the R's appropriately. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont, open 7 days. And it is that time, folks, where we go to our long-form interview, and it's with Bob Cox. Now, we remind you, you're listening to Marrone in the Morning. No, Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. This is Radio Westchester. We are the station at the New Rochelle train station. That's why our call-in numbers are 22222. And you can listen live on RadioWestchester.com. Our app is easy to access on MyTuner Radio. You can get it on your cell phone if you like. Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Periscope. And what a way to go to our next guest. Bob Cox is the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound, and I love his tag, considered the source since 2008. He's broken most of the major stories here. In fact, the other day, and I saw a tweet you sent out, Robert, if I may give you credit, you covered a story, you broke the story, and then another outlet came out with the story, and then you tweeted, "Gee, who broke that story?" or something like that. Welcome, Bob Cox. How are you?
Good. That was the story about the coach and the police investigation in Yonkers that was undertaken. And I was laughing because, we broke that story.
That happens to you a lot.
Well, what was funny about that was that News 12 ran a headline and a lead paragraph that said, News 12 has confirmed that there's this, and I said, confirmed what? Confirmed our reporting. I mean, what are they confirming?
They used you as one source. Now, it's true, consider the source, but that actually does happen to you a lot. I've known situations, if I've understood them right, where a news outlet has called you, confirmed the story, then ran the story and not given you attribution.
I would say that happens about, 95% of the time with News 12 and about 100% of the time with LOHUD.
But yet they'll talk to you on good terms and yet not give you that attribution. Every once in a while I'll see it. Is that because they try and keep the first line of news at bay? Why do they do that?
You'd have to ask them. I don't know. I make it a point to always try to give credit to any other media outlet that breaks a story that I want to write about.
Oh, I know you do.
I don't see why you wouldn't. But for them, like I said, you'd have to ask them. But in the case of LOHUD, we've had sort of a running feud ever since I did the infamous gun map story, where they did a map of where all the gun owners were in Westchester County based on the pistol permit licenses.
Yes.
And so I countered that by doing a map of where all the Journal News employees lived. And funny, they had no problem identifying all these private residences of these people who lawfully had a pistol permit, but they were very upset that I listed where they live. And ever since then, we've been sort of at odds. News 12 is a different story. I worked with them up until recently, but I had a couple issues this year. They have some new management over there, and they, a few times, asked me to use my content, which I've always let them do for 10 years. And then they didn't give me a credit, and their excuse was, well, they went out and got the content on their own.
Separately.
Well, if you make a deal, right, that if I give you credit, you're going to, I'm giving you content, you're going to give me credit, then you have to honor that deal. They didn't see it that way. In particular, one that bothered me was a reporter asked me for material I had obtained under FOIL through great difficulty, where it took over a month to get it, and I had to do a lot of research, even know to know to get it. And they asked for it, and then later that day they ran a story without attribution, and the excuse I got was, well, we went to the place and got it ourselves.
Well, once again, you get
and
that.
I said, well, of course you were able to get it because they already had forwarded to me a PDF file, so the work entailed just forwarding that same email to you. I said, that's still my reporting. And more importantly, what does it cost you to give me a credit? I mean, that's the part I don't understand. But it's very simple for them, which is if they want to behave that way, I just won't share my content.
Well, then you shouldn't.
I don't.
Well, good for you. My guest again is Bob Cox. Now, Bob, you've been writing regularly, and we've been following your stories about Mr. DiRienzo. And I noticed in one of your latest stories, you mentioned you're not so sure if he's going to be back.
From what I'm hearing, they're in the process of negotiating a separation agreement of some kind. I think if they were going to bring him back, they would have brought him back before the end of the season. It doesn't look very promising. Happy to be wrong, but I'm just hearing.
No,
that
but why would they when assuming the relatively benign, and I'm not talking about what happened in Yonkers because we don't know once again, but
well, we do know the police dismissed it,
right? But the benign nature of the other issue, or relatively, it seems that he's paid his price. It would be in the best interest of all to bring him back. Why not?
Well, and just for listeners who aren't fully up to speed on that, so there was two issues that have become sort of known. One was November 13th, there was an issue where he is alleged to have helped a student leave the school who was drunk, and that violated some protocols about discharging students. So that was on November 13th, so 6 days later, or 5 days later, the superintendent called the New Rochelle Police Department to say that she had information about a person from Yonkers who was alleging inappropriate sexual contact by the coach back in 1988. I broke that story on the 26th. The following day, having said that they were just in the beginning of the investigation, the day I called, the next day they said the investigation's over and they're not going to pursue it because the statute of limitations, which for the charges most likely that she was alleging would have been 5 years. So none of that really made any sense, but it was basically dismissed. But okay, so that was knocked down. So there's still no explanation as to why they're not bringing it back, because the cafeteria incident does not warrant what they're doing, and the Yonkers situation was already dismissed. I mean, what's the basis for keeping him out?
I think that's everybody's question now.
Well,
why would he bow out at this time if, in fact, it becomes his decision?
Well, well, first of all, he has 30 years in for his retirement.
Well, of course.
So he doesn't need to stay. And would you want to stay and work for people who put you through what he's been through, publicly vilified? I've described it as they had the hanging, and then next they wanted to have the trial. So why would you want to work for people
Although that
like
doesn't, to be fair to them, doesn't though that say that he didn't do what he's alleged to have done? And I'm not talking about the thing that happened in Yonkers, because that was dismissed and it should be treated as such. But irrespective of what came before, if he broke a rule and he broke a rule and he gets smacked on the wrist, or wherever you do it, why not stay?
Well, like I said, I think he, has the flexibility to go because of
No, I know, but he loves the job.
Yeah, but again, listen.
I know it's your take.
He'd have to speak for himself, but I'm just saying that I think that it seems reasonable to me to say, why would I want to work for people who just treated me the way I've been treated, especially when I have other options to go someplace else?
Well, that's true. But what might have they have, with respect to the first incident, what might they have done differently?
Well, first of all, the way it's typically done. Okay, and I'm talking in my 12 years of covering this and having been through dozens of these. Typically, they do the investigation, then they take the action to suspend the person, having drawn a conclusion.
Right.
Here, they did the suspension first, called it a reassignment, but it's a suspension. Then they said in the statement, we're suspending him, and now we're going to do an investigation. Plus, the investigation itself is fairly simple, okay? As I talked to some administrators outside New Rochelle to get their take, I said, well, you've been in this position as a senior school official. How would you do an investigation like this? He said, it's very simple. I get the allegation, I bring the person in, I ask them what happened, I make a decision. They said it's an hour. In this case, by all accounts, the interim principal at the high school, Joe Starvaggi, did a report. It was 4 pages long, and he had completed it by the following day, and he recommended reinstatement. They never acted on that. So
that's really significant.
Well, it seems to me, and it seems to most people, that there was an agenda here that they wanted to get rid of the coach before this incident happened, and this became a pretext for doing that. And I don't want to. Well,
that's a position that you sense talking to people, but we don't know that is indeed.
Well, I'm only saying it matters because that is a widespread perception. That there was an agenda here that had really nothing to do with the incident. And the reason that matters is because that is informing the view of the black community, the football community, the Fuse Teachers Union, and Service-Related Professionals Union for the district. So this is sort of a consensus view that's going to impact the perception of what the superintendent and the board did, and in my view, make their opposition to the current leadership adamantine, that they're not going to change.
I love that word, as you know. Yeah. But isn't it also true, though? I mean, that's not the phrasing I wanted to use. But what would have happened if this girl died? I mean, isn't it enough? And again, I don't know why they waited, and sooner or later they're going to have to answer that. But what despite now you've reported about this feud, and again, if true, this feud between the medical director and the coach,
the trainer.
Yes, thank you. Would that be enough to have them risk their credibility, as they have in the suspension?
Let's talk about a specific hard example about credibility and the actions of the people involved. So when I reported out on the Yonkers police investigation, which it's a terrible thing to have to report, but it was a pretty big story.
No, you had to do it, no question.
And but the next day, I got hold of some records regarding what had happened. And although I had sort of heard the story, now I had the actual records. And the sequence is that on Monday, the 18th of November, the superintendent called the New Rochelle Police Department to basically try to file a criminal police complaint against the coach on behalf of this person from Yonkers. And it would be difficult to overstate how wildly inappropriate that is on multiple levels. The superintendent presumably doesn't know anything about this person or their credibility. It is not the place of anybody to call the police to make a criminal complaint on behalf of somebody else. You have to go. If you're robbed, you don't send your wife. You go and say, I was robbed. This person took my wallet. They held a gun, whatever it is. You go. So the idea that the superintendent would take it upon herself to be the one to call the police. And why is she calling the New Rochelle police? The incident was in Yonkers. It was 31 years ago. So if she was going to do something at all, she'd call the Yonkers police. So her behavior was so outside the norm and so unusual and so inappropriate. And the police told her that. They said, if there's somebody out there who wants to bring a complaint, they have to do it themselves. So she did give all the information that she had gotten. That's where this thing came about a suppressed memory and all this kind of stuff. But there isn't any justification for doing that. Now, there's been 2 that have been offered, by her supporters in this community, which is a shrinking number of people, I might add. One is, she had to because she's a state-mandated reporter. And the other is that her lawyers gave her advice that said, you need to call the police, which are kind of overlapping. So here's the problem with that, State-mandated reporting is for children. This woman is probably 50 years old. She's a grown woman, And the statute of limitations is 5 years, except for murder and first-degree rape, none of which was alleged here. Obviously, she's alive. And if it was first-degree rape, the police would not have said that they were dismissing it because of the statute of limitations. So it's a woman who comes forward with this allegation. The right thing to do would be to say, I'm sorry to hear your story. My suggestion would be get an attorney and have them guide you through the process. That attorney would have told her, you can't file a criminal complaint because it was 31 years ago, but because Governor Cuomo signed the Child Victim Act, you have this 1-year window where you can file a civil complaint, which was not done, right? Instead, she went to file this criminal complaint. So there is no mandated reporter law that says that for an adult who claims they were a victim when they were a minor, that a school official or anybody has to then go and act on their behalf. The second is the lawyer angle. Well, I've been around a lot of lawyers, and I deal with a lot of people who are in the news, and I can tell you that there's not a single lawyer I can think of that would have told the superintendent to get herself involved in this matter. To say, yeah, you call the police, Dr. Fejo. That's what we want you to do. We're your lawyers, and we're telling you, you got this random phone call from somebody you don't know and can't vet, and we want you to involve the school district officially in this matter. And why is that so stupid, and why is it so unbelievable? Because if this woman gets an attorney, like all good attorneys, the attorney's going to sue everybody. So they're going to sue Yonkers school system, and they're going to sue the coach, and they're going to sue the New Rochelle School District because they employed him for the last 30 years. They're going to sue everybody. So why on earth would the school district lawyers tell the superintendent of schools, by all means, get directly involved?
To your point, though, so then why would the superintendent do this is the question.
Well, that warrants an explanation
No,
from her.
it does warrant an explanation.
You'd be asking me to surmise.
But
I mean,
no. The reason I say that almost rhetorically is the tone as we led up to that may well be that it was done with malice. Perhaps it was done just out of ignorance and feeling an obligation to do something.
Well, I was up in Syracuse this weekend with the football team and therefore with all the football parents. And I talked to many of them, especially after the game. They all wanted to talk to me afterwards. And not all, but many. And absolutely, they believe that this is agenda-driven. And that
still doesn't make it so.
The only reason, well, I mean, you're asking me.
No, I know
what's out there, and I'm telling you what's out there is the belief that it is in fact driven by malice, because there is no good reason for her to make that call, for her to involve herself. You get a call like that. I get calls all the time
yes.
from people who want to tell me some story about some terrible thing that happened to them, and all I can tell them is, you need to get yourself an attorney. I'm not an attorney. I can't be giving you any kind of advice about this, and you get off the phone. You don't get involved. You can't. I mean, you can't. So there's absolutely no justification. It is bizarre. I think it really raises questions about Dr. Fajo's judgment and getting herself involved. But I would also say, why did she do it? Well, I think the main reason is she didn't expect that anybody would ever find out. This was all done confidentiality. I mean, how did I even get the story? How did I know about any of this? I mean, you can draw your own conclusions, but I think it's fair to say that there was people in the loop at City Hall who didn't like what was going on and made sure I knew about it.
Well, my take is there seems to be a fair amount of analysis all the way, malice all the way around on this. 919, we're talking with Bob Cox. He's the editor-in-chief and publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. Just prior to this story, you reported in one of your other stories, or perhaps in the same one, Robert, that the coach was telling people to, in effect, lay off, to not complain. I accept the reassignment. What was that all about?
You mean the hostage tape? That's what I called it. It was a statement that sounded like somebody was writing it with a shaky pen with a gun to their head. I pictured an ISIS flag behind him as he wrote this. Listen,
you mean like for those of you who are sports fans, like when Guy Lafleur left the Canadians the first time, I'm very, very happy about this. And we all knew he wasn't, but go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, there was a statement issued that asked people to kind of calm down and not protest and just focus on the game.
Well, why would he do that?
Well, I would have to believe the reason that he did it is because they're trying to negotiate a termination agreement, and he was told that it would be helpful to our giving you something close to what you want if you were to step in and issue a statement that would calm things down. I mean, I will tell you, I don't know about Dr. Fajo, maybe she lets it roll off her back, but these school board members are not taking it well that they are being pilloried throughout the community, because of course they're being yelled at school board meetings, but you could imagine if these people go to the dry cleaners or the grocery store or the car wash, they're hearing about it from anybody they bump into.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't talk about it, but so I was here Monday morning last week,
Mm-hmm.
and Monday evening they had a special meeting.
Yes.
Which was culminating a day where the coach was in City Hall. I was there most of that day. They were negotiating between the lawyers, and the coach was hearing exactly what the complaints were from the school district. And in fact, that's what the statement he issued was about, which is I've now heard, and that was that Monday, what their concerns are, and I hope everybody will calm down, that kind of stuff. Now, there was a board meeting after that. And I'm not going to get into the violations of open meeting law that occurred. That's a whole nother story. But what was important about that was after the meeting, the vice president of the board came into the room where everybody was waiting for them to reconvene. Now, that was Damon Marr, a couple people from the media, Mark McLean from the NAACP, myself, the education chairperson from the NAACP. So, it wasn't a bunch of hobos loitering in the train station. It was, some significant people in the community, excepting myself. But, I mean, there was some important people there. And he came in, and he made a number of statements that were quite bizarre. And
who is this?
This is Paul Warhit, the vice president of the school board. And the gist of it was, if you knew what I knew.
Yes,
okay, then you wouldn't be saying what you're saying. And once the truth comes out, all of those people who spoke on Tuesday are going to owe us, meaning him, too, an apology.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, what was he talking about?
I got to stand. Don't mind me, folks. I got to cramp my leg.
What was he talking about? Well, I believe he's clearly talking about the police investigation in Yonkers. And, okay, so now we have that information out. Let's go back and look at what Mr. Warhead said on Monday night. I think for most people, if what he's talking about is a 31-year-old unsubstantiated allegation that was almost immediately dismissed by the Yonkers Police Department, that no charges are going to be brought, they're not doing any investigation. It's sort of like, if that's what you're talking about, that's the best you have, that's not much. You're certainly not going to get all the people who complained a week ago to stand up at the next board meeting and apologize. I don't think anybody owes anybody an apology here except the administration and the board to the public, because they've been very unclear as to what exactly they're doing and why. But I think that is an example of how the board members are really feeling the heat, and they're trying to deflect it and kind of blame it on the people who are complaining. Well, it may turn out that, there is some more information that we get and all that kind of stuff, and nobody wants to get too far out on their skis. But the fact of the matter is that the public, especially the families of the football players, have good cause to be upset because they've been largely kept in the dark. And in fact, at that meeting at Webster School, which was November 19th, members of the public, the press, and parents on that football team were specifically lied to, okay, I believe, by the board president, okay, because there was a question about the investigation, and the board president, Amy Moselli, said that the board is not involved in the investigation. Then the people there said, well, what about Fayhu? Fayhu is not directly involved in the investigation.
And who is?
No, she was.
Okay.
That day before, she had called the New Rochelle
Made that
police.
phone call. But aside the phone call.
What do you mean aside the phone call? She initiated a criminal
No,
investigation
I
into the
understand
coach.
that.
How much more
but
involved
I
can
mean,
you
was
be?
she in an ongoing basis?
Bob, you're missing the point. It doesn't. That's enough. Why are you asking for other examples? I'm giving you, the Zapruder film. What else do you want to know?
What frame?
What else do you want to know?
No. Here's what I'm saying: she
was the board president stood in front of those irate parents and said to them, "The superintendent is not directly involved." When she was directly involved, and the board president knew that full well.
Let me ask
she
you a question.
lied to those parents.
During the conversations with lawyers and or Mr. DiRienzo, okay, I'm pronouncing it correctly, was she the one conducting that investigation herself? Was it mano a mano? Was it face to face, or was it with others?
It's Bob. What you're asking is utterly irrelevant to the point, so I'm not going to even respond to that.
No, because your point, Bob, is that she did this one thing.
It's not one thing. She initiated a criminal investigation of the coach.
I understand that.
Well, that's not
I
just
understand
one
that.
thing.
No, but it still doesn't mean that she was involved in the ongoing investigation as Moselli might have interpreted it.
Bob, if I said that Bob Marrone is not directly involved in hosting a radio show, would that be true? You're sitting here at the microphone.
Yes, that's true.
You are directly involved.
Right.
Okay?
But
so
suppose
if I tell people that you're not directly involved and you're sitting at the microphone, I'm not telling the truth.
Well, that may be true.
It is true.
She may not be telling the whole truth.
Not the whole truth.
But
she's not telling any of the truth. Bob, she's not telling any of the truth. The exact quote was, she's not directly involved. She was directly involved. How much more directly involved can you be when you talk to this woman in Yonkers and you call the New Rochelle Police Department and you get a follow-up email?
Was Moselli's comment after that?
No, it was the 19th at about 10 o'clock at night. The meeting in the Yonkers PD was somewhere around noon that day. The New Rochelle Police Department meeting was around 11 o'clock that day. And the call by the superintendent to the police department was the day before. So she makes the call on Monday. She hears back about what's happened with the case and all of the details, okay, in an email chain that was sent from all the New Rochelle Police Department, conversations and everything that they did and what the complaint was. She gets that back with a full set of details. between Monday and Tuesday, and then Tuesday night, Amy sits there and tells the parents that this woman is not involved when she is. And I will add one other thing. That is the same meeting when another board member, Valerie Williams, became irate and started screaming and yelling at the end of the meeting.
What for?
Well, she was saying that she wanted to go into executive session to discuss what they had just heard from the public at the school board meeting on the 19th, that they ought to filter basically and process all the anger and all the statements that had been made by all these people. And they didn't want to go to an executive session. And the people that were saying we don't want to go to an executive session knew about what Fayhu had done, knew there had been a criminal complaint filed. And other board members did not know exactly what had been going on. And they certainly didn't know. I've talked to board members. They did not know about Fayhu's involvement. All that stuff that I reported about, she called the police, she spoke to this person, she got a follow-up email. She was basically, I mean, just think about this.
Okay,
Bob.
well, that's, yes. Yeah, I hear
Think
you
about
now.
this. Fayhu takes it upon herself to represent this person with the complaint in Yonkers. Represent them. Why? Why is the school superintendent representing an alleged victim of a crime to the New Rochelle Police
Do you
Department?
think Maselli knew that when she answered your question?
Well, she wasn't answering my question. She was standing and
Well,
talking
whomever. Yeah, okay.
to the public, including parents from the football team Tuesday night.
Do you think she knew
Do
that?
I think she knew? Well, this is my question that I asked in the article. She certainly knew that, and Paul Warhit knew when he brought it up the week before, there had been this complaint of a criminal nature. But did Amy Moselli know that the superintendent had played such a role? Did literally call the police? Did she know? That I don't know. So that leaves open the question. Did Fayhu not tell the board the full extent of her involvement? Or did she and Amy lied about that? But they certainly knew that Fayhu was involved. I mean, at least Amy did, and I think Paul did. The rest of the board, I don't think that they did. But I mean, put it this way. Setting aside all the who shot John piece of it, what we have here is the superintendent calling the New Rochelle police to make a criminal complaint against an employee based on a 31-year-old allegation from a person she doesn't know. That's completely nuts. That is nuts. And there's no attorney that would advise anybody to get themselves in the middle of that. And she's not calling because she's a bystander. She's the superintendent of schools. She's involving the school district and throwing the weight of her office behind these allegations. Why?
Have you heard anything more from the district or the administration since?
Well, no. I asked Dr. Fayhu a series of questions. I think there were 6 questions about all this when I was reporting out the story. Didn't get anything back from her. Didn't get anything back from the board. Didn't get back anything at all. So they're not answering those questions.
Okay, when we come back, we have to take a break. Our guest, of course, Bob Cox, the managing editor, publisher of Talk of the Sound, considered the source since 2008. We're going to go to Chris Conway with the weather. When we come back, we're going to see if there's another side to the story, at least the feud aspect of this. What reasons do they have other than this dust up and clearly you've articulated it rather well between the regarding the trainer and the coach? Why should they have animus towards Coach DiRienzo? We'll look at that when we return, but first we have to go to Chris Conway with the weather. Chris, good morning.
Good morning, Bob. It is 35 degrees here in New Rochelle. Today will be cloudy and windy, a mix of rain and snow throughout the day. Highs in the low 40s. North of 287, there is a winter storm warning that's in effect through 7 a.m. tomorrow. South of 287, just a winter weather advisory. Tonight, there'll be snow at times. It'll taper off slightly after midnight, maybe 1 to 2 inches as you get toward New Rochelle, toward 287, I should say. It will be 3 to 6 inches. Tomorrow, sunny, highs in the upper 30s. Wednesday and Thursday, a mix of sun and clouds with the high around 40 degrees. Weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle. Voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Thank you very much, Chris. And just looking outside our windows, it seems that there were kind of slushy stuff that Bob Cox was pelted with on his way in has abated a little bit. But we shall see as we go through with the rest of the afternoon. The bottom of the hour is brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars located at 204 Boston Post Road in Larchmont. They're open 7 days. Plug in Virtual Reality, the law firm of Pena & Con, Aging Issues Management, Aging Issues Radio, and the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. And we return to our conversation with Bob Cox. We're going to ask a little bit more about the coach, but then we're going to talk about the great success of the football team, who's been running it, who has been in charge, who we can get in here and congratulate. You know, it's funny, Bob Cox, going back to that. If I were still running the chamber, next year they would be the Grand Marshal, would be the football team. Even though I know it's the same week, they might actually be headed to the playoffs. What a great accomplishment. But first is, other than the coaches dust up with this trainer issue, and assuming what's that great learn we were taught in journalism, if true, I think is the term, greatest term in journalism. Do they have other reasons to be annoyed at this coach? I mean, to want to pursue him?
Well, I think last time I was here, we talked a bit about it, but I've done some additional reporting since then that, this all seems to have its root in a dispute involving the athletic trainer who was here for about 3 years, who's now left and she's working at a local college. So it seems like, let's put it this way. The last story I wrote before I got here basically took us till mid-October, of this year, because there was a push on to hire the trainer who was working as a contract employee from a company to have her full-time. The coaches wanted her, the players wanted her. She wanted it because she wanted the salary and she wanted the benefits that you get from being a direct employee. So everybody wanted it, but apparently the medical director didn't want it. And there seems to have been some kind of personality conflict there, which I've detailed, having to do with concussion protocol. Okay, so she left, and as of August 1 of this year, she was no longer working for that company, and she was therefore no longer the trainer for New Rochelle Athletic Department. But what happened was that during the regular season, there was a couple of games where they did not have an athletic trainer. So the district, the athletic director called her and said, "Can you cover this game in September? Can you cover this game in October?" And so she worked at the games for North Rockland and Mamaroneck. Medical director, according to what I've been told, found out about it, particularly the second time she did it, and went ballistic and called over to the high school, and absolutely under no circumstances is she working any more games. I don't want to hear it. Back and forth about that. We didn't have a trainer. We have a football game. So basically, I think the attitude was, get us a trainer, any trainer, okay. But if you're not going to get us a trainer, we'll get our own trainer, right? But we got to have somebody,
right?
The next game was the last home game of the season. That was Spring Valley, probably Coach D's last regular season home game in retrospect. And there was again no trainer. And it came up because a player during the game was seriously injured. He had a season-ending ankle injury. And a couple of people that were there saw the situation and were concerned about it enough that they called Mark McLean, who was on your show just a couple weeks ago, because they knew he had contacts with the school district, with the board, etc. So during the game, a guy named Mario Scarano, who's a well-known figure in New Rochelle. Okay, and he was former athletic director for New Rochelle, and then he went on over to White Plains, and so he's very well acquainted with the issues.
Coach,
So he called Mark during the game and said, "Hey, there's no athletic trainer here." Bishop Leake, who actually is like a minister for the team and is with the team all the time, he also called Mark during the game and said, there's no trainer here. You know, we had this problem last week. We had the problem a month ago, and now there's nobody here. So during the game, Mark called the board president, Amy Moselli, and said, you know,
there's no trainer.
We don't have a trainer.
Mm-hmm.
Now, according to Mark, she kind of unloaded on him about the former trainer, saying that woman would never be back in New Rochelle, and she kind of went off on that. According to Mark, he said, look, I'm not calling about her. I'm calling about the fact that today, right now, there is no trainer.
Sure.
Okay. And so an email was sent by the board president to the interim superintendent at the time, Dr. Parvey, and it basically said to the effect of, you know, they're complaining about wanting the old trainer, and I told them, you know, that this is a personnel matter, and you know she's not coming back, and they think that she was poorly treated, and I explained to them that she wasn't poorly treated, and so the request was to set up a meeting to talk about the athletic trainer. Okay, that meeting never happened. And there's a whole story about that that's in the article that I wrote on Friday.
Saw it.
But when I listened to them tell the story, and this often happens with me, okay, they were missing the point, right? They were so revved up about the trainer that they sort of missed the forest for the trees.
I'm sitting here still asking, did they get a trainer for the game?
Well, no, they didn't get a trainer for the game, but what I was mystified by was, on what basis would the board president have an opinion about the athletic trainer? That is so far down the org chart from where she sits as board president, number one. So how would she even know about it? How would she know who the trainer is? Why would she have such a strong opinion about the trainer? And if it's a personnel matter, by law, the board president or any member of the board isn't allowed to know anything about it.
So this is still October.
Yeah, this is October. This is something that our board members currently don't seem to understand, at least the newer ones. I think the older ones, like Rachel, not old, but longer serving board members like Leanne Merchant and Rachel Rell can understand this, that this is a violation of their role in board governance. We've developed a habit in our school district where the board members think that they can wander into school anytime. They can stop into classrooms, observe what's going on. They can look through personnel files. They can read employee emails. This has all been going on over the past 2 years. I've been reporting on it. Okay. That stuff is totally illegal.
That's not right.
It's totally illegal. Okay. And they seem to have no concept of it. So the significance of this exchange is not, I mean, yes, their issue is the trainer, but that's not the significance of it to the broader community. The broader issue for everybody is, why is the board president involved in a personnel matter? How does she know what's good or bad about a trainer dealing with the medical director? She shouldn't be privy to any of that information. So there's something seriously wrong here where the board leadership, and it happened under Jeffrey Hasty and it's now happening under Amy Mazzelli, are way outside their lane. Okay, getting involved in operational issues of the district.
Dumb question. Is there any, you know, when I'm on the board of the Chamber of Commerce, and when I was the executive director, they gave me a whole set of bylaws and told me what was in my purview and what was not, and what I could do and couldn't do, and what insurances we needed to have, et cetera. Can I assume that we do that with the school board?
And I don't know what they do with that.
Okay, but there is usually a protocol.
Well, there is training that you can get, and you don't have to get it, but the Westchester Putnam School Board Association offers training for incoming school board members, and there are things about board governance. But there has been this attitude developed over the past 2 years that, well, the situation is so dire that it necessitates these unusual measures.
Okay.
No, it does not. Okay. It does not necessitate the stuff that's going on. We had a situation where there was this whole Apex investigation. This was online credit recovery, and it was allegations of grade fixing. And the board president took it upon himself to conduct his own investigation. So he had the IT department pull all relevant emails, then upload them to his personal Google Docs account so he could sit there at his leisure and read through these emails.
Isn't that a violation of privacy?
It's a violation of state law.
Okay.
Forget about privacy. Okay, it's not privacy because they're employees, but it's not appropriate. The way it works is this. If a board member wants to review a personnel file or they want to go into a school building, and this by the way, is coming from the general counsel of the New York State School Board Association, Jay Warona, who I talked to about this at length, who sent me an email with all the citations about this. I wrote about this. I published it. I spoke to the board about it back in the spring. If a board member wants to review a personnel file, for example, there has to be a public board vote. Let's say that you're an employee of the district. So we're going to vote and say that,
you can't see my file until they vote.
A board member wants to see your personnel file. We would have to vote and say, yes, we're going to allow it. But it's a limited purpose. So the way it would work is the file would be brought to a board meeting. The board would go into executive session. The person would be allowed to review the file now that the board's approved it with everybody else present. Then when they were finished, the file would be taken away from them and put back into the file cabinet. We don't do that. Okay. Likewise, if a board member wants to go wander around Albert Leonard Middle School, they can't just show up and push the door in and start wandering around. It's not even up to the principal. The board specifically has to say, at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, you, board member X, can go to the building for 1 hour and look around. It has to be approved by the board in public session. They don't do that. In fact, they have programs specifically to have board members, it's called the Board Buddy Program, to go into the schools when there's not public events going on like a school play or a sporting event and be in the school, which they're not allowed to do. It has to be a specific date and time, a specific instance. And that says nothing about the newest board member, who I like, but wasn't willing to endorse, William Iannuzzi, because he works for the Boys and Girls Club that contracts with the school district, so he's in the schools all the time. And he's not allowed to do that. The board cannot give him a blank check to say, oh, for the rest of the school year, you can go in whenever you want. No, it's Tuesday at 10 o'clock for an hour. It has to be
very specific.
And every time he wants to do it, he has to get permission.
943, that voice you hear is that of Bob Cox, the managing editor and publisher of Talk of the Sound. And this kind of depth and understanding of the issues is why you ought to be reading Talk of the Sound on a regular basis. He's been doing this kind of work for over a decade now. It is 9:44. One last question about all this. Where do we go from here? Where does the school
Armageddon?
No. I guess.
I mean, a lot of people asking me that question, and I'm going to give you a prediction. Right? Dr. Fayhu is not somebody who's going to resign.
No, she's not.
I've interviewed her one-on-one 3 times, bumped into her in the hallways half a dozen times, been to all of her press conferences, and I've been to all of her board presentations since she came on board on November 1st. Doesn't seem to have the personality that's going to just kind of melt away. So she's not going to go. The board, for a variety of reasons, but mostly because they've been operating in sort of turmoil with all these vacant and interim positions and firing people and this and that's been going on for the past couple of years, they cannot afford to be seen to be undermining yet another senior official. So they have to back Fayhu. They cannot afford it. I mean, who would want to come here after the board has sandbagged yet another senior official?
Understood.
Okay, so they're going to dig in their heels. The black community, the football community, the union, they are going to be unreconciled to her for the entire time she's here. So what you're going to get is 4 years of standoff,
contention,
recrimination.
Isn't it all possible, though?
And let me finish.
Go ahead.
With the effect that normal people, you and I are not normal, we pay attention to this, but the average person doesn't. And so they're just going to go away. They're going to pull their kids out of the schools. They're going to move to a different town. They're not going to come here in the first place. We're not going to know about the people from New Jersey and New York City
that
and
didn't
Long Island
come
that
here.
didn't
You never
come
know
here.
what didn't happen.
So I think what you're going to see is sort of the overall performance and quality of the school district sort of collapsing from the inside. And we're already starting to see that because you had a significant flight of students out of Albert Leonard Middle School, about a 300% increase the last 2 years in the kids not matriculating at the high school from Albert Leonard.
I helped you with that word. Isn't it possible, though, can we leave this possibility out there that she'll win them over? over the long haul.
No,
you don't
it's
believe
not,
that?
No, I spend a lot of time with people of all stripes on this. The people who support her, they're really like Trump supporters. She could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue, and they're going to defend her.
We actually have a Fifth Avenue here in New Rochelle. We can do that. All right, let's go. Our last 14 minutes we should spend on this great conquest of this football team, 13-0. Who actually has been sitting in for Coach D? Who I know that there are really good assistant coaches. I know that Ray Rice is involved. Who's the next in command? Who's been carrying the mail for the team?
Well, I mean, they basically sort of have been running things by committee. Although the one coach in particular has been sort of the guy calling in plays and stuff like that. But don't ask me to remember all these coaches' names.
But is there anyone who's been like the spiritual leader of the pack?
I'm not close enough to the team and the day-to-day practice to have a real. I see what happens at the game, and I talk to the coaches after the game. And when they appear as a unit. So my perception of them is that they're presenting.
Yeah, but somebody's got to call the plays. Unless you have the offensive coordinator.
Well, I mean, I think that's what's happening. I think that, the coaches are coaching their piece of it. But, I mean, at the end of the day, and I know the guy's name now. You're asking me. I'm drawing a blank. Okay. But there is one coach who is, yelling in the plays, and he is doing the hand signaling and all that kind of stuff. But that's a little bit misleading because there's guys up in the booth with headsets.
I know. What does Ray Rice do? I've always been interested in his case.
My understanding, he's the running back coach.
He's the running back coach?
And
okay.
I guess he's doing a good job because the running backs are really good.
Yeah, I know. No, I always, I get in a lot of debates over the Ray Rice issue. I always thought he should have been given a second chance, especially that his wife married him and they moved on. But that's an emotional thing of understanding.
Cancel culture, Bob.
I know, but
that's the where we're at right
now.
I know. No second chances.
No, I know that, but it's just so unchristian. The guy. He married the woman. He made a mistake. We all saw the film. I get it. Although one of the things that always gets missed, and this will get me in trouble with the Me Too movement, but she did run at him. He shouldn't have reacted the way he did. He shouldn't have been as callous getting around the elevator. But he's paid a dear price.
Well, I would say this, is that I'm not going to get into what happened 5 years ago, but I would just say this, is that he is beloved and widely respected within the football community in Rochelle. And he does a lot of good in the community. I mean, he doesn't have to. He could have just, moved away and just left everything behind.
I know that.
And he stayed. He's stuck. He's involved in the football program. He's also involved in the community in other ways. So,
and doesn't he visit teams for the NFL too and talk about domestic violence and all of that? Doesn't he?
I mostly know what he does in New Rochelle, so I don't know what he does. But as far as his impact on the team, you could see that it's nothing but positive. And imagine you're a young 15, 16-year-old player, and you've got an NFL All-Pro coaching you.
No, I get that.
That's pretty good.
We're going to be doing a hockey show soon, and my first guest is going to be a guy I played with, who's in the Hall of Fame now, played against actually. And I'm still thrilled, and I'm older than he is. So imagine if I was looking up and I had Ray Rice. I get that. I mean, it's got to be exciting.
So I will say this. So I went up to the game. I don't normally cover New Rochelle high school football games. I'm definitely not a sports reporter. There's people who do that a lot better than I do, and I don't really pretend to be one. But
it's not that smart.
I was interested in just to be there as a reporter to sort of see what the zeitgeist was among the fans, what was happening with the players, sort of their demeanor. It wasn't really about their play, both before and after the games. I tried to be around the locker room at halftime and see how they came out. I was certainly there on the field after the games. And I would say this. I mean, so they played two tough games to get to the state finals, but they were, about halfway through the first quarter, I was standing on the sidelines, and you could just see. And I thought, New Rochelle is just a much better team than this team.
Mm-hmm.
And what made it clear that they were much better was their defense. I'm a Giants fan. I remember back in the days when they had LT and Carl Banks. What I always love about a good defense is the way they swarm to the ball, and there's usually 4, 5, 6 guys in on the tackle. And that's what they were doing right from the
our
get-go.
defensive guy, he won. I have my story here. He won the MVP.
Kaba. He had
that's it,
4
Kaba.
sacks out of
4
5.
sacks.
New Rochelle had 5 sacks.
Yeah.
He had 4 of them. He had a total. He had 9 unassisted tackles. And I did interview him after the game, and he's a very funny kid.
Yeah.
You know? But what happened was they do announce, the organizers, the New York State Public High School Athletic Association do announce the offensive player of the game, the defensive player of the game, and so some other, there's like 5 awards. So they announce the defensive player of the game, and they give it to a kid from the other school. So everybody around, the parent, the coaches and the players, they're all mad because they're like, how could you not give our guy, Kaba, and so everyone's getting really like sort of shocked and a little bit irritated. And they're like, I'm the MVP, number 77, and the place went crazy.
I had to be really exciting.
And so he was so funny because at the post-game interview, he said, I'm there and I'm thinking, I'm going to get the defensive player of the game, and this is not exact quote. I have the tape of it. I'll put it online later. But I'm thinking, and then they give it to this other kid from the other team, and I'm thinking, what do I got to do? And so he was kind of stewing on it for about 10 seconds. And then they're like, I'm the MVP. And he said, it was like a big relief, like, okay, but it was him. I mean, and he played really well, but it's not a team on defense, especially that has stars. It has a complete unit. And, you have to give credit to the coaching staff for bringing those kids together.
And I got their names. See if anything's ringing a bell. Greg Foster, Ray Rett, and Rich Teles.
Well, those are the coaches.
Rich Tassello.
Well, Rich is the guy who was signaling the plays.
okay.
But I'm very reluctant with my lack of knowledge.
No, I know. But see, what I'm trying to figure out, and it's also selfish, I'd love to get some of these players in here and the coach and give them a chance to really brag.
Well, next time we'll get you to go up to Syracuse.
I'll do that.
And we had to come back in a blizzard. The game was supposed to be Sunday afternoon, and
they moved it up to Saturday because of the weather. Yeah,
they moved it. Well, can you imagine the logistics of that? I mean, hotels, buses. It was a mess. And I was gonna go up on a bus, and they didn't have enough buses. And fortunately enough, I was able to get a ride up there from somebody who was going to the game. But I will also add. That it's a great treat for the championship game to be played in the Carrier Dome. I mean,
That's
you're in
great.
this beautiful indoor facility.
How many people were there? Did they get 1,000 people?
I would say they probably had the number was probably somewhere at or under 5,000.
Oh, well, that's nice.
With both teams.
That's great.
Because McQuaid, the other school, they're from right down the road in Rochester.
Yeah,
so
Rochester,
they actually brought more people, not surprising, because
Yeah.
they had probably a 40-minute ride.
Sure.
But New Rochelle was very well represented. I didn't sort of, I was focused on the game because was shooting the game. But looking back in the stands, I mean, I did see the school principal, Joe Stervaggi, was there. And obviously a lot of the families were there and so forth. Noticeably absent, of course, was Dr. Fajo. That's highly unusual because in the past, the superintendent would always go.
But would it have added a problem had she shown
Oh, yeah.
up?
Oh, yeah.
So it was wise for her to stay away.
But it's just to speaking to the sort of state of where we're at, no board members that I saw came. They may have been there, but I didn't see them. And then after the game, there was like a post-event thing at the Sheraton Hotel, which is because Carrier Dome's on the Syracuse University campus. And there's a hotel and convention center, and everybody migrated down to the Sheraton. The players, had food waiting for them there. The families were all there. The families were all staying there.
This had to have been great. Must have been great.
Yeah,
it just had to be freaking great.
Well,
excuse me, being an athlete myself, and it just had to be great.
But I will say this, and I don't mean to underestimate these kids, but there's no way in my mind that they can fully appreciate and understand what happened. I mean, I know they do in a certain way, but
they'll have to be a little older.
What I will say this. So this team was the first team ever for the high school to go undefeated 13-0 and to win the state championship. They had one other team that was undefeated that went 10-0, but nobody ever went 13-0. And then add to that the whole melodrama with the coach. So and so what I can tell you is this. For decades, in this town, people will be talking about what happened Saturday night.
That's absolutely true.
And that's something I don't think the kids fully appreciate, but they will. This is the kind of thing that will be talked about for a very long time.
Can I indulge your good offices? Is there someone who I can contact to get these people on? Is there anyone you think I might give a buzz to?
Well, I would think the best person would be the PR guy, Ken Valente.
Okay, Kenny. All right.
You know.
I'll call Ken. I'll get them on. Although your excitement about it is, I remember as a kid, I didn't make the basketball.
And by the way,
team.
they're not going to be able to be here at 9:00 or.
No, I'll get them in earlier. But I'll get them in at 7.
Okay.
Or 6:30.
Just remember, they got school.
I know. I figured that one out, Robert.
You need maybe a snow day.
I'll get the coach and I'll get somebody, or I'll get them in the afternoon and I'll tape it. These people deserve. Well, I'll do it live. And then I'll put it on in the morning. I'll do it live and later. I'm going to get this. This needs to be. This is a big freaking deal. To quote Joe Biden back when, this is a big effing deal.
Well, they don't have practice after school anymore. So
I figured that part out.
Now's your chance.
I like the way Bob takes me to school.
Now's your chance. And by the way, another thing too, having spent time with them on the field after the games and also interviewing them post game and being around the locker room after the game. These student athletes actually were really polite. They were.
I understand they're really great kids. Yeah.
Well, you know what it was? They won, and they just won the state championship, and they won. They were undefeated, and they dominated the other team, McQuaid, Saturday, and yet there wasn't this sort of obnoxious.
They were gracious winners. Is that fair?
Yeah, I would describe it as sort of a quiet confidence that they had, that they set about doing what they're doing. And again, it's what makes what's going on with the coach such a shame, because there's very few people in this community who've been able to have the kind of impact on the students and their families that this coach has had over 30 years.
I've learned that in a month.
To take him out of the equation in this community over what seems to be such a relatively trivial matter. I mean, we could sit here and say, what if? But the fact is, what do we really have here? A girl got drunk. He helped the girl get into her father's car, and the father took him home. This is a terminal offense. I mean, put it this way: they better have a lot more than they've shown us to justify what they're doing to this community. And unfortunately, if there's a stipulation agreement, we're not really going to find that out.
No, but these things always wind up coming out. But I certainly understand your point, Bob. You've done a great job again. You do great work. And I encourage people, talk of the sound, consider the source. You want to know what's really going on in this town and in the surrounding community. Not the horn, although we like that. Talk of the sound, consider the source since 2008. Bob Cox, thank you. You're getting the hook.
Listener.
That's how we do it.
We had enough.
Get it out of here. Oh, wait, there's a garbage truck, Bob.
They're coming to take
You're
you
right.
Away.
You're right.
The mayor sent the garbage truck to come take me off the air.
Great job. And when we get them in here, you're such a supporter of the team. I'll make sure you know when it is you come in. I'll go get them in. Bob Cox, everybody. Thank you very, very much, folks. Check it out, the Talk of the Sound. Find out what's really happening. We need to go back to Chris Conway now because he's the purveyor of the weather. Did it get better or worse? What are we looking at? All of a sudden it was snowing. Now it's not. Bob Cox has already dried off. What have you got?
Being under a roof an hour.
Talk to me.
There'll be a mix of rain and snow.
Today.
Cloudy and windy throughout the day. Highs in the low 40s. North of 287, there'll be a winter storm warning through tomorrow morning, where you're looking at 3 to 6 inches of snow up there. South of 287, around these parts, winter weather advisory. Tonight, snow at times will taper off after midnight. 1 to 2 inches possible in the New Rochelle area. Tomorrow, sunny, highs in the upper 30s. Wednesday and 30, a mix of sun and clouds with highs around 40 degrees. Weather is brought to you exclusively by United Hebrew of New Rochelle, voted one of America's best rehabilitation and senior care campuses. It's right here in New Rochelle. Visit uhgc.com. And I'm Chris Conway for Radio Westchester.
Thank you very much, Chris. And let's take a look at tomorrow's show. I can't even think about tomorrow's show, but I got it here. I do want to thank our guest today, Trevor Riggin from the Red Cross, Vince Russo. We talked religion this morning. George Latimer, and it looks like they're considering opening up that roadway on the Kensico Dam Plaza. Thank you, Jake's Football Picks. And, of course, they were brought to you by Dominic's Fine Cigars, licensed retailer with a big selection, including Arturo Fuente, Padrones, and more. Dominic's Fine Cigars, located at 204 Boston Post Road. They're open 7 days. We got a kick out of his Francesa facts again today. Mayor Noam Bramson, that was an interesting conversation about politics on David's Island. And, of course, Bob Cox, considered the source, not he, but his news outlet, Talk of the Sound. Bob Cox, thank you very much once again. We want to thank our sponsors, the United Hebrew of New Rochelle, the top-rated campus of senior care. Visit uhgc.com. Aging Issues Management, the law firm of Payne & Kahn, and Plug-in Virtual Reality. Tomorrow we talk with Mike Edelman, Mike Duffy. He's the lawyer whom put that question forward for Mr. Latimer. And A.J. Woodson joins us tomorrow. So too does Jack Breslin. Thank you for listening. You've been listening to Mornings with Bob Marrone. I am Bob Marrone. We are live. This is Radio Westchester. We'll be back tomorrow morning at 6:07. Once again, thank you so much for listening. Remember, we are the station at the New Rochelle train station, radiowestchester.com. You can get the app, and you can go straight to MyTuner Radio. Put the app there. You can listen in your car, listen up in the space station, the shuttle, whatever you want to do. Thank you once again, Chris Conway. Great job today. Bob Cox, thanks for coming in once again. And we'll see everybody tomorrow. Try and stay safe in the weather. Don't drive in the ice and snow.